come to this training. Now I will hand the microphone to Jennifer.
Thank you.
So I'm Trevor Hatfield. I've worked with Training Oct for about 3 years, and I've worked with VDX for about 6 in total, 6 going on 7 actually now, I think. So been with the program for a very, very long time. I've seen it do a lot of really quirky things, and so if you have any questions at any point in the presentation, just ask. Don't put up your hand or anything. Just shout it out, no matter how silly you think it is. It's kind of yeah. Just ask away.
All right, I went one too far, but that's okay. So my name is Jennifer Latham. Some of you may have saw me last year. I'm the ILL team leader at Chinook Arch. I've been at Chinook Arch for about 5 years. I started as a cataloger, still do some cataloging, but I spend a lot of my time doing VDX. So my portion of VDX, rather than the day-to-day stuff, is I do a lot of the stats for the province. I pull all sorts of fun things for your annual reports. I do a lot of our different kinds of stats that we need to pull. I do kind of a lot of the mediating, deal with different kind of issues like that. And then I'm also backup for Trevor when he needs help with all of the overwhelming workload. I'm also there to help as well. So today, this is kind of what we're going to be going over. So we're going to do a brief introduction to VDX, what it is, essentially cool resources that you might find or you need to find when you're doing interlibrary loaning. Then the bulk of it's going to be borrowing, especially since that's mostly what you guys do. So we're going to start with the life cycle of request, work through the work queue, and then also we'll be looking again for questions, go through trouble examples of trouble requests. So requests that don't have ROTAs, tips on how you can get VDX to build one or how you can build one yourself. And then we're going to go at the end, we're going to go into a section on lending, just so it's always good to know what you're doing and what the other person on the other side is doing, and also what the headquarters has to do on a daily basis when it comes to lending material. So, and then if we have time at the end, we can, if anyone's brought any issues from their own work queue, we can work through those. If not, we have a slew of problem examples in one of our library's work queues. So,
is anybody totally new to VDX? Never used it before? Okay, that's good to know.
All right. So Trevor is going to take over this first section on the introduction to VDX.
Yeah, before we get into VDX too terribly far, we're going to show you another website that we've created at Chinook Arch to basically help interlibrary loans, make things go a little bit easier for you guys. You can always give us a call if you can't find anything on the website or anything like that. We're always there to help. But a lot of the resources that we can provide are already up on the website.
Oh, that's not the one I wanted. Tell is a nice one too. Oops. All right, and there, that's the one I wanted.
Our support website.
And it doesn't work. Okay, so we'll just go.
You can Google it.
Yeah.
ILL Alberta, and you'll find our website. The site at the moment does require logging in, and we're kind of up in the air as to whether or not we're going to keep that. To log in, you would use the same login that you would use to log into VDX. So it's your library's national code. If you don't know that, put up your hand, we'll figure it out. And the same password that you would use to log into VDX, which in your guys' case, I do believe is the last 4 digits of your phone number. So it makes things nice and simple. On our front page here, we'll put up any kind of news. So like if a library gets closed because of flooding or renovations or anything like that, we always post that kind of news on here. Any kind of, like recently the U of A had started to centralize interlibrary loans for a lot of the academics in the Edmonton area, and we announced that on this website, that sort of thing. So that's the sort of news that you'll find on there. Under the VDX tab, you'll find all kinds of things, documents related to It normally doesn't do that. I'm not entirely sure why. Once you log in once, that's usually all you have to do. It does have the manual for VDX. The particular one that's on there is a little outdated number-wise, but all of the information in it is still very current. So you can totally use that manual. There's more information in there than you could possibly need. So, and there's also a VDX glossary, because VDX was made by a British company. They use a lot of sort of terms that aren't intuitive, like rota, as opposed to, say, lender string or things like that. So sometimes it's handy to reference the glossary. Another thing that's on there is the rota codes for Alberta libraries. So if you know this library's got it, but you don't know their code for it or something like that, you can actually just look it up on there. Then under policies, kind of talks a little bit about, there's like a link to Alberta Public Services branch, the Library Public Services branch. There is a link to the Library and Archives Canada symbol and policy directory. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that, but it is a great resource. It is literally just a database of all of the libraries in Canada and whether or not they'll loan through interlibrary loan, what they charge, that sort of information. We're actually in the process of building a more detailed one for Alberta on this website, but it's unfortunately slow going because I can only do it in my spare time. There's also a little bit of information about if you want to try and send a request to the states, the sort of hoopla that's involved and charges and that sort of thing.
Why, like who would access the states?
You can literally send any request you want. Policy of your library kind of dictates that a little bit. Like for example, at Chinook Arch, we pay up to $50 for any interlibrary loan. So if a patron wants an item and we can only get it from the States, we will send it there pretty much no question because we'll pay up to $50. Some libraries will only send requests to the States if their patron is willing to pay for it. So that's the sort of thing you kind of need to consider. There is also a PDF that I've created that has a list of most of the public and academic libraries in Canada, and it lists how much they charge. So important for people that are in a no-pay system like yourself. Under shipping, there is links to the Canada Post shipping tool. We also have pre-made government courier labels for any of the locations, the 91 locations in Alberta that are on government courier. There's also some information on shipping to tract libraries. So if you're trying to send it to one of the smaller libraries, it tells you whether you ship it directly to them or whether you ship it to the node. FAQ is the frequently asked questions for not only VDX, but interlibrary loans in general. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's frequently asked questions. And the resource sharing tab was recently added. I don't think there's actually anything on it yet. We added this last week as a result of the resource sharing meeting. Essentially what's going to end up on there is the minutes from the Alberta resource sharing meetings and things like that. So. And that's pretty much our website. There's a couple other things that I want to show you on here. If you ever lose the link to VDX, you cannot Google VDX, unfortunately. It's really, really, really difficult. So we give you a link to that, as well as Tel Online and WorldCat. Although those are Googleable.
It's also available on our website.
Oh, perfect. This website's very much a work in progress. So if anybody ever sees anything that you're like, you know, it'd be awesome if they had that on the website, please let us know, and we'd be more than happy to add it. So.
The VDX manual is also on our website.
Oh, perfect. So that being said, what is VDX? VDX actually stands for Virtual Document Exchange, and it is a web-based interlibrary loan software. So it's a website. And it allows you to search multiple catalogs simultaneously. We call those targets in VDX. You can view the bibliographic information as well as the actual holding information for the item that you've retrieved. You can place a request for the item, and you can basically track and manage that request throughout its entire life cycle. You can also use it to manage requests coming to your library from other libraries. although in this case that all goes to HQ. So where do they come from? Oh, I'm jumping ahead. My apologies. Anybody not familiar with what a web browser is? I actually had a very in-depth conversation with somebody and I kept saying web browser. What's a web browser? Web browsers are the programs you use to access the internet, in case you're not aware of that. The three most common ones are Chrome, Internet Explorer, and Firefox. OCLC says they all work. We have had the best experience with Firefox, though. That seems to work most consistently. So we do suggest using that one. This is normally the address you would use to access VDX, but today we're going to get everybody to do a little bit of live work because VDX is terribly boring and dry, so at least by being interactive, we'll hopefully keep you awake. So if I can get everybody, I don't know if you can read that or not, but if you could put that into your web browser, and if you're having any kind of troubles, let me know and I'll come give you a hand. Okay, you can use any browser. Like Internet Explorer will work fine.
Is that HTTPS?
Yes, sorry, my atrocious handwriting. ://.
And Dennis, I'm sorry, is that 8493?
8443.
8443?
Yes. Yeah, this is our test portal. So anything that we do within this portal is not active. So it won't actually go through at any point.
You don't have to worry about these books showing up on your doorstep. Sorry.
Is it two backslashes actually?
Yeah, HTTPS. :// Yeah, there's two here.
Okay.
Colon, not semicolon.
No colon. Well, you need to do it up here.
Oh, yes. That's what I was doing. So you could just flip, yeah. It doesn't matter, sorry.
Pardon?
I have a really bad habit of writing it all up. Oh,
Okay, do you want to put this in the search bar?
highlight that whole thing that I got written.
Yeah, just not in the search bar.
And change that up.
Right click.
Yes, that should be it.
Okay.
Should be
So
good.
your address
You
there
have
is
it on there.
HTTPS
So then I just go
colon
out.
//. So you have HTTPS.
Oh, I don't want to be live. I'll just click out of here.
After the dot.
So you know what you can do?
We're going to put in a colon 8443. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Right?
Okay, so.
I
put it right. Easy. That was just.
Oh,
Yeah, the slashes are the other.
And the VDX needs to be on it.
Actually,
Oh,
okay, so what do I take out
The
then?
VDX.
Just as a part.
No, get rid of those. Yeah. Yours is good.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, you can page forward back to that. You can go back. There we go. You're good? And you're
There we
good.
go. 15 minutes for us all to get on the right page, so.
And then that one would be So it's exactly the same. It's a chapter.com.
So I just hit, I don't know, now that I've done this, I hit it again. To not to be live.
No, this is the text database. So we're
I have
so
like
you're totally good.
I was the one who usually does it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So I just did it. Oh, okay.
Oh, it's there. I split it on.
Yeah. Excellent, yeah. Oh, I thought you did that.
Oh, you lost it?
I did.
Oh,
Sorry. I hit the wrong.
Down.
Oh,
It
okay.
might show up over
Here, there.
No, the down arrow.
So you're saying.
Are we allowed to do number on?
I can
choose. Didn't do it.
I did 3 times.
And here's what's on
It's actually yours.
I don't know, I might call you.
Oh, you already did it?
That's right. But I'm okay,
I'm just
so
gonna
I don't know where it's going to start.
Yeah.
Did I go through this? No. Oh, okay, so, we'll just wait. Normally we'll go to the queue and then where it feels start. Which is in case it is another. So confusing. It's like. Here's what we're going to do. Monday to Friday, 10 to 8. Saturday. Okay. Oh, okay. Just do it. Able to do it.
Yeah, that one should be right.
And you're open what, 1 to 5?
Hey, okay, we're good.
Should we log in?
Yes, if you want to go ahead and log in, using your library code and password.
Yes.
We're all good here. We're all in here, are we? We're in, are we?
Yep.
Okay, so you can click on login. And we'll ask for a username and password. The username is your library symbol, so
In caps or small?
it doesn't matter.
Okay.
The password is case sensitive. But
You got numbers?
Sue to reception, please. Sue to reception.
so when you log in, it might have asked you if you wanted to save your password. You can, technically. Sometimes it does cause problems, though. And we'll get to that problem. Like, I'll show you exactly what happens later. But you can save your password at your own risk. I'll just put it that way. Once you're logged in, you'll see some navigational things. There's a list along the left and a list along the top. The one we've got circled here is work queue. You tend to spend a lot of time in the work queue because it shows all of your active requests, or most of your active requests. So if you click on one of those 2 work queue links, they're both the same. They both take you to the same place. So you probably see something very similar to this here. Each one of these sort of represents a different stage of the life cycle of a VDX request, and we'll talk about each one in detail as we move through the different stages. Just kind of wanted to show you a quick overview here. You shouldn't ever see anything on the lender side. If you ever see anything on the lender side, like a new request, not supplied if you're comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable with that, just contact either Northern Lights HQ or myself and we'll investigate and deal with it while request showed up on your lender side. So we keep talking about requests, and this is the life cycle of a request. We create the request, then it goes to pending, or the status of the request. Then it becomes shipped, then we receive it, then we either renew or recall or anything like that, and then finally we return it back to the lending library. That's the sort of general overview of the life cycle of a request. But where do they come from? Where do these requests start? And Jen's going to do a little bit of the searching and requesting with you.
Okay, so there are 3 main ways that you can find a VDX request or create one. The first is by creating a VDX bib search. So you go into your bib search and you create the request straight from VDX by finding a record and submitting it through there. The second way is through a blank form. Now the blank forms are rarely ever used, especially with the way TAL Online has changed. It's really hard not to find a bib record, and this is really only used when you don't have one, maybe when you have specific information that you can be looking for. So in the final way, and perhaps most common now, is a TAL Online patron-initiated request. And as the use of TAL Online has increased over the last year, you'll see more and more of these, especially if your users, your library patrons are internet savvy or they like to be at home in their pajamas requesting library materials. It's a great way for them to do that without any help. So this, if you want to go to the bib screen, and actually I'm going to do a bit of live here rather than using the PowerPoint. So you'll find the search, I believe, on your left-hand side, right? Let's see. I'm just going to go. I'm going to log in myself. All right, so mine opened onto the advanced search page. You can also find it, I believe, on the left-hand side if you're in the work queue. So, and we're going to start searching for a book. And what we're going to search for to start off is the book, The Hunger Games. So actually, and this is the wrong page, I'm sorry. We want bib search on the left-hand side. Okay, so we're just going to do a broad search for The Hunger Games. And click search on the top. And if it's working properly, you should probably get a couple hundred results. Oh, that could be it. Thank you. And I want Alberta Public. Yes, in this case, I'm just searching public. So mine was searching everything. We don't really want that because we don't need it in this case.
You can search all libraries. It'll just be a little bit slower to return results. That's kind of why we have you can sort of narrow the targets that you're searching by using the profiles there. Yeah, you can make that as all libraries, or if you change the drop down.
And it's really not coming up.
So it's got more.
Susan, call 221, please. Susan, call 221.
Somebody's getting returns, are they?
Yeah, very good.
Oh, good. All right. I might just try in the normal portal. We'll see.
I guess, yeah, we can't really do damage to catch it. So, yeah, needless to say, overwhelming amount of results.
All right. I'll try this here. Okay. And we're going to search that. And hopefully this one works better. Okay, here we go. All right, so already it's been searching a little while, and it has so far 23. It's not as bad as I thought. It searched total hits. It also says 399. So we don't actually really want to sort through these because I want a specific format. So at the very top of the screen, we have a bunch of tabs, and we're going to click on the one that says filter options. And we can search, we can filter by format, language, and level. So if we go into the format, and I'm going to just select clear all here, just to clear all formats, and I'm going to actually select audiobook. So book on CD. And then I'm going to drop down the language menu, and I'm going to clear them all, and I'm going to select French. And then we're going to submit and see what happens.
So what's the difference between doing that after, or when you do your first search, you can select what you want? Like,
Yeah, it doesn't
work better? Or?
No, it works the same, and it's just essentially why I show it this way is that sometimes you don't really think about it, and you just go, oh, I want the Hunger Games, and then you're surprised to find 300 results.
Okay.
And so it's just a way to see that you can filter it after, and you don't have to start your search over and filter it the first time, that you can do it at the second stage. And it really is not.
Yeah, that's. I guess the important thing is that they can get access to it. But.
Yes. So if it works, worked the way I thought it would, you should have had 3 results. The first, second, and third version of the audiobook in French. Oh, okay.
Okay, so this is actually kind of an interesting time to check status of catalogs. This is a kind of a good example. I'm going to sort of hijack Jen's slide here for a second. In a case like this, we know this item exists because we actually own it in our catalog in Chinook Arch. So the fact that it's not pulling up is a little frustrating. And if you're ever in that case where I know this item exists, I know it's in Alberta, why isn't it pulling up? You can actually check the status of the connections that you're making to catalogs. If you click on status up at the very, very, very top, what that does is it actually shows you all of the catalogs that you're currently searching and whether or not it's retrieving hits. You'll see at the very bottom, we're currently not able to talk to Wood Buffalo. We're having some technical issues with them.
Oh, is that what that means?
Yeah, when it comes back showing error, that's literally it. It tried to call the catalog and it got hung up on, basically. Okay. So, and in this case here, you can see Alberta's returned all of its results, but it's actually still trying to search and present with Calgary Public, Chinook Arch, a bunch of them actually. It's still trying to retrieve.
I have noticed that before. You do a search and you know it's there, and then you wait a few hours or the next day, and then it'll pop up because they're not online.
Yeah, it could just be that like momentary, there was some kind of hiccup in the system, their servers are overloaded. There's all kinds of reasons why that connection might fail, even just temporarily.
Alright. Yeah, it's still going. Let's try, that one's still going.
You might not have saw what she just did there, and actually it's pretty handy. She just clicked on results. So we left our search and we checked the status. And by clicking on results, we're actually just going straight back to that search that we just did.
All right. It'd just be better to go back from here for the moment.
Anybody getting a result yet?
Oh, well, that's unfortunate.
Is there a way to stop it? Like, let's say,
if you just go,
tired of it searching.
yeah, if you click on requests or bib search, or just go back to one of the other tabs, it will cancel that search.
Oh, I hope that didn't work.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So proud because that was such a good example.
Yes. So this, if you could actually see it, is the result of the one I wanted. So it's the Hunger Games, the first one in French, and the holdings show that our French library in Lethbridge has 3 copies. So from there, I would say, oh yeah, that looks like the right one. This is the one. And I would go up to the top and I would select request.
And we selected you?
Yeah, you should be able, like, this is the test database, so anything you do is completely, just inside this room today.
Ah, here we go. Forgot I did that. All right. So, and when you did it, you would end up with this screen here. And there's a few things that you want to make sure when you hit the request page that are present. So at the very top of your screen, you'll see the authorization status and the item format. This should be set at this point to be authorized, which means that VDX is going to try to build the rota for you. And the item format is usually pretty important, and in this case, it should automatically set it to book on CD.
So you'll see that some of the sections can get collapsed.
Oh,
And
we have to open it up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you click on that, it will expand that section.
Okay.
I'm going to go back and check on it. Not that one, not that one. Oh, okay.
Okay, so we're good.
So they did return us, I figured you could pick a random one.
No,
Why would we need service 2? Like there's service 1
I
and
didn't
service
pick that
2 on the screen.
I didn't pick.
There's certain things in VDX that are just literally technical information
Oh.
that you don't really need to worry about too
Okay.
much. Service details are one of those sections
Oh.
that I would suggest you ignore it.
Okay, so if we're going down into the bib information, there's a few things that we want to make sure is present. So we need, number one thing you need in a record for VDX to build a rota is an ISBN. Unfortunately, there's a lot of formats out there, or a few formats, that won't have them, meaning audiovisual a lot of the times doesn't have that. So DVDs, CDs rarely ever have one. And in that case, VDX is not going to build a rota for you. You're going to have to do it manually. But in this case, it's an audio book, so there is an ISBN present in the record. Another thing, because we're ordering a specific format and a type, I like to put in behind the title something that specifies it to the lender. So in this case, I put in big cap letters, French audiobook, because it has happened in the past where you order the audiobook and they don't really look, they don't search by the ISBN when they're lending, and you end up with the print book in your hand. So
You do that instead of putting in an item note?
That's where I like to put it, just because it's straight in your face, front and center. An item note would work as well, especially if it's the item note and not public note is the one you probably want most. Item would work too? Okay, so.
It says use it to send the lender important additional item information. So like larger.
It's just that an item note is present in that little blurb that you see, but it's not quite as in your face as this is, or as a public note would be, because the public note would show up with a bright yellow sticky. In this case, that's where we would put it, just so everyone, the lender is aware exactly what you're asking.
I didn't know that you were allowed to do that. We always put it in the item note because we thought that was what you were supposed to do. But that is totally in your face more.
Yeah.
We literally moved that just because we were finding people weren't catching those notes.
Yeah.
Like on paper, yes, we should be able to put it in the item note and they should see that. But unfortunately, people are busy and don't always catch those.
So it's next to the title there.
Yeah. Another thing that you might be aware of sometimes, is that sometimes the ISBN that pulls in, there'll be like 4 of them strung in a row. And that sometimes will confuse VDX when it tries to build a rota as well. And it might just go, oh, there's too many, I don't know what to do, and it might not build a rota there as well. So in this case, I think there was 2 or 3 I removed the last two, especially the last one, because it was an ISBN that matched all three audiobooks. So it was for the box.
So the first one's usually the correct one?
In this case, it is the correct one, but it was easier for me just to pull off the last ones and just leave the first one.
That drives me crazy how many ISBN numbers you can get, you know, and when you're trying to make sure you get the right one that goes with the right, there's more than one. Oh, so you make sure there's only one.
You don't necessarily have to, but it's a good way to, you know, kind of up your chances of getting a lender. Okay. Back one. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do before we submit the request is put in your patron. So in this case, I put in my own name and I searched it. And the reason why you want to validate your patron is so that you know who's requesting it. It's a good way to backtrack, to have that record. If you just put in anything or if you don't validate it, then it's hard to go back and afterwards and then find who you lent it to. So
She's got it side by side there on the screen.
it's actually scrolled down, yeah. So you would search for the patron, and I did it again.
So you put in your patron barcode. Do you know your library barcode? It should be very, very close to the bottom.
Okay, yeah, so you'd put in the barcode of the patron. And your your service obviously won't say Chinook Arch, it will say Northern Lights Library System or something, and that means it's going to search against that. So you would do just the barcode. If you wanted to search against VDX, you could do the drop-down menu and you'll hit one that says VDX, and then you'll have to search with your Northern Lights prefix out front. Otherwise, it won't bring it up. So it's easier just to do the barcode, in my opinion.
If you even just want to find any particular record to work with, that might be handy, especially since that's still not returning results.
So if you search your service VDX, you have to make sure NLLB is in front of the barcode.
I believe it's the library code for the region, not your library. So it would be AEPNL. Yes. Yeah. So if barcode is easier, in my opinion, but.
So you might have found that, yeah, you tried to add yourself to this request and it said no patron found.
Okay, so that will happen if you create a bib record straight in VDX and the patron isn't there. And unfortunately, there's no way to kind of do it from there without going back. So there's another way we can do it, and that's you can open a new window, whether it's in another browser or in the same one, and you can create the patron.
So if you go over to user.
So you can find it on the left-hand side. There's like the 4 down, there's a user button. You want to click on that. And then you'll end up in a search page. And you'll go to the top of the screen and you'll see a button that says create. And you want to click on create. So I can go live for that section. All right. Yep.
Is there a way, because sometimes you are working in a record and you want to go and you want to go and do something else and it, like with me, I always just go, okay, I know I'm going to lose it because, is there any way to be in 2 or 3 of these at one time? Or no?
You can. Sometimes it creates little bugs and issues if you try. So that's why, like, we can do it here, and it's probably your best option just to open it. Most of the time, it's not going to work all that well, but in this case, I would try it because it's better than having to go back and recreate this search all over again.
So what are you doing to do that? You still got the old one open up?
Yeah, so it's just, it opened another one. I'm already logged in. So I would just go and I go left on the left-hand menu to user, and then we have the search page, and then go right up to the top, and we want to create the new record. And then we'll end up at the same screen I had before. And this is in a new window.
How did you get the new, like I lost my old window.
You lost your own window?
So the old, okay, so we had the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You went directly to user and you got a new window, so you still have your old stuff somewhere, like the past window somewhere?
I just clicked on the little, like, if at the top of the menu, you opened a new window this way, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh.
So it just opens a new tab, and then you copy and paste or put the new address in the tab, and then it'll open up the new window.
So I just lost it. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
So open a new window and I'm sorry, Jennifer, what do we do in the new tab?
So what we're going to do is, if we didn't have the patron authorized, sorry, they weren't in your system, they weren't in VDX, you have to create the patron. So on the left-hand side, there's the little user button. I think it's the fourth one down. We want to click on that, and then you'll end up in a search page where you could search for an existing user. In this case, we know they don't exist, so we're going to go up to the top and hit create. And you'll end up with a blank user page. Okay, so there's a lot of lines here. You don't actually have to fill in most of it. The only things we really want is the barcode for the user, and this should match their barcode in your ILS. We want, and this barcode here needs the prefix, so it needs the AEPNL prefix with here. The alternate barcode is where you would put it without.
So just up along the top there, there's that sort of.
Yes.
There's a space
Is
right
there a space for the first?
It's the AEPNL in all caps, then a dash, then the user's barcode. All, like, no spaces.
It's a E.
AE.
No space.
And then the second.
And then the alternate barcode, you don't necessarily have to have it in there. It's something that TAL Online uses. However, if they start the request, that information will get pulled and put in there automatically. So you don't necessarily have to put it in there. Then we want your first name, their surname, and if they want to, their email.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, no.
Is there a space between?
No space, just a hyphen.
Okay.
Don't put in a password.
Okay.
Okay.
The password is used if there's a side of VDX that is for patrons. We don't actually use it because we have TAL Online.
What if they don't have an email address?
Then leave it blank. It's not, the only time it uses it is sometimes it will alert the patron if you can send them an update through VDX, say you can't provide the item, you can send them an email or a user alert, and they'll use that email to send them that notice. So if they don't have one, they don't have one, and you'll just have to use call them outside it. Okay, so the category should always be patron. You probably won't use any other kind.
You should, it should actually remember that. See.
Oh, it does.
Okay.
I'm in.
This one.
Can leave this one blank, the join date, because that one's going to do it automatically. We never ever put an expiry date in. If you put it in, it creates funny things, and so we just don't use it. Your location should be your pickup location. oh, sorry, your location should be preset to your library.
And then I validate?
And then the default pickup location is wherever they usually like to pick it up. So in your case, your library as well. And then once that information is in, you don't need anything else. So you would just click save.
You have to add the
So
AEP-NL hyphen.
And then, do you hit validate there?
Before you click validate, switch your authentication to VDX.
Oh, all right. Which? Just below that?
I think I have this.
Down arrow? Oh, to VDX. Yeah. Yeah. There's lots of people. And there
No, really.
all right.
Yeah. Important one. And actually, in Initiative quite often for because the email field is what prints on the.
Oh, there I am.
We quite often put phone numbers in that
Okay,
field.
so from here, I would just click save. This one already exists, so it's not going to work, but
Yeah, just an email. We quite often put their phone number because it's the field that prints off on the paper.
Yeah, I'm here.
And so it's just kind of handy because at least at LPL or Electric Public, they always call their patrons when they have their library loan. And so it's just kind of
I'm just going to pick one of these. Okay. So everything is present. I'm going to take away half of that.
This is where I
Okay, so the patron authentication service that it's talking about there, that's when the request goes through or when you try to validate, that's who is VDX calling to look up this patron. If you have the AEP-NL in front, that's the barcode in VDX.
Okay.
So you'd have to set that to VDX for the authentication service. You can actually leave out the barcode or out the AEP-NL. You still have to add it when you're creating the user, but when you're validating here, you don't actually have to put that part in. You could just put in your barcode and leave Northern Lights and validate.
It didn't take it.
But did you have the AEP-NL?
Not the first time.
Oh, and you were already in it?
I was here, and at first I did it with just modify code.
Yeah.
And Northern Lights and validate, and it came up with an error.
But you weren't in VDX yet, right?
No, I hadn't done the VDX.
Okay, yeah. Once you're in there, that will work.
Okay.
The patron still has to be added for that to work.
Okay. So if we've gone in and we've managed to get the patron in there and validated, the information will pop up below. And because we're in the test database, it'll probably show a dummy email address because it doesn't provide that information. Then we would scroll down or up to the top and hit request. And then we have the success page. So, which is good.
Anybody having major difficulties still? Or they're like feeling totally lost, like we've just completely abandoned you?
Nope.
So you can use that feature like opening up more than one VDX. But
we don't recommend you use it really, except for that, because it can create little bugs. Like it does funny things sometimes, right? Can you explain some of the things? Yeah, that's the only time I would recommend using it is in that circumstance.
With us, we always make sure when we see a request that comes, we always make sure we look at the patron to make sure that they're in good standing and get in.
Yeah, that's it.
Before we ever go any further with us, we know about the patrons. We know whether or not they're actually in there or not.
Yeah, and that's a great policy because it stops you from having to do that. Yeah. Okay, so to check them, you would still go into the user on the side, and you can search for them. So you could search for their barcode, and it should work. 7000 and click search. Actually, I'm going to click any part. Sometimes it's finicky. And there's my information. Slightly wrong, but it's there. So, and if you wanted to edit it, say add an email address or something like that, you could go down. There's this little edit button right at the bottom here, and if you just click on it, you'll be back in this page.
I've got a question.
Mm-hmm.
We recently got the new plastic track card, and
Okay.
many of us got new smartphone numbers. So I'm just looking at my own here, and so mine's entered with the AEPNL on my
Correct.
old.
Okay.
So I thought, oh, okay, I'll just put my new one as the alternate barcode. No, no, I
Yeah.
did not work. So,
Yeah.
So I have to actually get rid of
Yes.
my old user profile and create a new one. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, it does not allow you to change your barcode, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Let me put that new one in, but then when I searched for it, it didn't find it.
Because you put in, yeah. It's just best just to mark this one. So in this case, if you had a new barcode, you have to create a new user, and you would just do this. So you take the surname and you would replace it with delete and then save it. And then once a month, OCLC comes along and they run a report that removes all user records with the surname of delete. So those ones will be removed. Yeah.
So all the new track cards. So we're gonna have to do.
When there's a way around it, and that's starting the request through TAL, because TAL will do it for you. So there is an easier way to do it.
That's all I would put. Yeah, I mean, you can put an email and like I was saying right there, we actually.
Yes. Yeah, you will be. Yeah.
Then all we have to do is go in all these secret letters.
And then just press it.
Yeah, if you want to remove the old record, that's what you do. Yeah.
So you must have made a towel online request or something. I did the surname first.
Did you just put your barcode in here and then it has it?
You can put it in that way, or you can just put it in the barcode.
That's right.
So long as you've got that card.
Is there a way to view all your users?
I did the surname. Yes and no. You can put in AEPNL hyphen and nothing else beyond that.
Okay.
And any part.
So
And click search and that will retrieve all of them. Now we know what barcode, and you switch it to any barcode.
Any part?
Yeah. That's what you know. You don't even need just go user.
Yeah.
And then it's the down arrow, but you search however you want. So I did search.
So how did, okay, so you go under search.
Like it's you on
The same user already exists.
Oh, because we just do that. So we would just check to see if they work, but.
Oh, okay.
Surname.
I haven't done
Say,
it.
how do you do a search?
Surname, remember about the other one?
Is there a way to like?
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Oh,
User
yeah.
files? I'm still only have to search for that.
There's sort of a way, and as you search for the prefix, so AEPNL dash, and then when you search, so if you were here, we'd search by barcode, and then we go PNL, and then we do any part or first part. In this case, I'm going to search the bureau, so I'll have some. Actually, I won't have any because I'm in Chinook Arch. But then we search it, and you should come up with results. In my case, I won't, but let's try it with mine, see what happens.
Yeah, it's kind of handy, yeah. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go into that there because it.
And you can't update the barcode, unfortunately. So you have to create a new user. Yes. Yeah.
You know what that would give you for?
Yeah, so I searched it, and I have, for ALCA, I've got, looks like 3 pages of results.
How would you see it?
Tell me email us.
Yeah, there's probably a few old ones. That's, I think, because we're in the test server, so it's not going to actually put in a valid email address there. Yeah.
So everything, like the names, like you do the edit, right? Is that what you're talking about?
I think it's once a month.
Okay, so if we're ready to move on, we're going to do another request. This time, we're going to narrow our results to Alberta academic, so Alberta non-public libraries. Yes, yes, please. Thank you.
And we want to go where?
Good search.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, and we're going to narrow the current profile to Alberta non-public libraries. So we're targeting the academics. And I have a very long title, but I'm only actually going to get you to put in the first part. My title is Human Impacts on Seals, Sea Lions, and Sea Otters, Integrating Archaeology and Ecology in the Northwest Pacific. So because it's such a big, long title, just use Human Impacts on Seals.
Sorry, what was the title again?
Human Impacts on Seals. It's a little bit better.
Looks like most people are getting results. That's awesome.
Yeah, so far we've got about 6 results. You can see, though, in this case, is that there's several of the results that is showing as an electronic resource. And we don't want to pick that record because it's going to show to the lender that you want an ebook, and they will not lend you an ebook, for copyright issues. So if you go down, and eventually you'll find one. In my target, it's number 5, and we can see that it's a print copy. So I'm just going to click on that one and make sure. So we have pagination here and the description. We've got an ISBN, it looks good. So from this page we look, okay, it's a good record to use the bib information, so I'm going to click request.
Should mention also to be careful about articles. If you request an article, they charge you. Like $10.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah.
That's the next fish for we fry.
Yeah, we're going to request an article in the test database, so you won't actually get it. But so in this case, the authorization status remains to be authorized. It's showing an item format of government publication because it's published by the University of California Press. So you can really leave it there. If you really wanted to, you could change it to monograph, but I don't think it really matters in this sense.
In this particular one, it does. And
Does it?
I only know, just that's one that you wouldn't get a returnable.
Oh, is it? Okay, so we want to move it to monograph, I believe. Where is it here?
At a lot of libraries, government documents are non-circulating, and so that they sort of assuming that here. And if we had left it as a government document, when you receive the item, it actually would not have a return function because it thinks it's actually, VDX thinks the library is going to send you a copy because VDX thinks this item is a government document and should circulate.
Yeah.
So you want to change it to book?
Yeah, we want to change the format to book.
How will we know we're supposed to do that?
It's pretty rare, actually. Pretty much the only one that's going to cause problems with is government publication.
So the only time you'll probably see this, if it's an academic press, that's the reason why is that it was an academic press that it did that. So yeah, just switch it back to book. But yeah. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to pull these out again. Not that important, but I'm going to do it. I'm not going to specify any sort of format because I want the most standard of the book.
Well, it doesn't really matter what the requesting.
Okay. And then we're going to scroll down to the patron details and authenticate a patron. Or validate, sorry. And if they're in there, they should pop up.
No. We're going to get to Rhoda a little bit later, but for the most part, we want VDX to try and do as much work as possible.
Yeah, so even though it pulls in those Rhoda details, just leave it because it's going to build its own.
So put in your barcode.
Even if it's not going to be in here. But I'll have my old one and I don't remember.
You didn't make one?
I have a new one, but it's not going to show me. I didn't create, no, I was.
Okay, that's okay. In this case, just leave it blank. It will go through. It's just we want the patron to be there in normal circumstances.
I'm in here with my old barcode.
Okay.
So, but I don't know what it is. But I can put it by my name. Can I put it by my name?
You can't authenticate with a name.
Yeah.
So if you want, we could.
I can find it.
Yeah, you can look it up and just copy it.
Okay, so if you have everything ready,
We'll do a new tab. And paste in there because it's probably still saved well the right address.
Yeah.
Okay. User, and we'll look yourself up. Okay, so you got yourself in there. That's beautiful. Awesome.
everyone's all authenticated? Okay, so we're going to just click request and it will submit the request. Okay.
You can just take, yeah.
So now we're going to do one more bib search request. Nothing's coming up, eh? Okay. All right. So this time we're actually going to search for an article. So say the patron comes to you willing to pay and they say, I want this article that's published in the Canadian Journal of Surgery, and the title is Early Medicine and Surgery in Calgary. Because we're searching in VDX, we can't search by the article title, we have to search by the journal. So we're going to search for the Canadian Journal of Surgery.
Of surgery?
Yeah. Fingers crossed. I got a result at Inchnook Arch, but okay, here we are.
We're good. You're safe. I think we're doing an article search now.
Yes.
Okay. So go back to the search. And what was the journal?
And we're searching for the journal, Canadian Journal of Surgery. Your best results will come from non-publics, yes. Journal of Surgery. Okay.
It's plastic surgery. It's not even.
Oh. Okay, so in my results, number 4 would work, even though it's an electronic resource, because an academic library will provide a copy of an article pulled from an academic journal. We could use that one. In this case, I think there's also a print one.
Your 4 is different than my 4. My 4 is not Canadian Journal.
You don't have any called the Canadian Journal of Surgery?
I have, but it's not number 4.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter just as long as you find one that says the Canadian Journal of Surgery.
Okay. Of plastic surgery.
Nope, just surgery.
We have 2 loaded in.
Okay, yeah, see, I have my first hit was plastic surgery too, but I do have this one here, this one here.
You're searching all, so it's searching the public. There's something in VDX called a load balancer, and essentially what it's trying to do is not overwork any particular catalog or anything like that. So that's probably why it's interesting, because it's also going to search the publics before academics.
Yeah.
So if you go instead of search profile to just on public.
Well, that's what I've done, but still.
Oh.
So why does it on, if people are searching for the same thing, they come up differently, like yours is different than mine. Mine
Don't
is
take
yours,
it personally.
it's okay?
I am.
It's just kind of a funny thing it does, yeah. It's, as long as you get one of the results to say Canadian Journal of Surgery, if you can't find it, just pick Canadian Journal of Plastic Surgery and it won't work, but just so we find one and we know how to add the information. So I'm going to click on this one here, Canadian Journal of Surgery.
This is how this record came out. Yep. So that's how it should.
Yeah, because you're literally asking for a photocopy. You don't want the actual physical journal.
Okay.
Okay, so you could pick the electronic resource. In this case, I actually picked the print copy. It's up to the university's discretion to choose what they want to send you. If they want to take the time to go out to the stacks, find the print book and photocopy it, then that's up to them. In this case, though, it also shows their what they have in electronic version, and I think they have access to this one. So we're just going to say, yeah, this is the journal I want, and we're going to hit request, which opens our article page. So in the authorization status, we want it to leave it to be authorized because we do want VDX to try to build a ROTA. In the item format showing, mine is showing print journal. You might see article online, article printed, any of those are fine. Computer file. You might want to change yours. I don't know if that will work. So print journal, article printed, article online.
Oh, well, she said to do request.
Request gets used a lot. She was actually still on the list.
Oh, okay.
So long as you're open there, we're good right now.
Okay. So if we scroll down to the bibliographic section, we'll see that there's a bit more details than we have with just a book. So we have the journal title, we have the publisher, the ISSN, which needs to be in there. Then we have some details that we need to fill in. So we have volume issue number, part date, title, author, and if you have it, the pagination. So in the case of this particular example, I'm looking for early medicine and surgery in Calgary, and that's the title of the article.
What was it, Jen? Early medicine?
And surgery in Calgary.
So if all we got was plastic surgery.
Well, we'll just use it, say this particular article was in here. We'll just use yours as an example. The one where it is pulled from is the Canadian Journal of Surgery. So, but if you don't have it, then all we really want to see is this information here, so we can kind of see how an article request builds extra information in, so the lending library knows what to provide. Okay, so we want the author, and the author is MT Troy. So Troy MT. I do not know the pagination, but I do know that it was published in September of 1976. So we'll just do in the part date, September 1976.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
In your, it's always the last name first?
That's the way it will show up in the bib information, so that's why I put it that way, because that's the way it will be cataloged. So, okay, so if all that is there, we're going to scroll down and authenticate the patron. Okay, so my patron is up. Scroll up. All the bib information is correct. We have copy non-returnable. That's good in this case. That's perfect. I'm going to hit request.
Validate or patron, right?
If you save your password when you try to validate a patron, is where this can cause problems. To the web browser or to internet browsers, that sort of request or that action is the exact same thing as trying to log in. So when you start trying to answer or fill in a validation, patron validations, your web browser goes, I know the answer to this question, and it will try to put in your login information and overwrite what you just took. So VDX currently has that fixed, so you can save your password, but that is what will happen if it breaks again.
Okay, so under patron details, amount willing to pay, it says 0, right?
Mhm.
Default. So why doesn't the system, because we're going to get dinged for this now, right? Why doesn't it show up how much it's going to cost? So at least you know.
VDX has no idea what libraries charge for interlibrary loans. There's unfortunately no functionality built into VDX to account for that.
So essentially, if you see an article request come through TAL, it's your responsibility to notify the patron that they will be charged. And there are very few institutions, academic in Alberta, who won't charge for an article request. Actually, there's one. So you have to let them know, and it is your responsibility to do that. And again, when you're building a ROTA, say we built this one, no lenders were found, and you're physically building it yourself, it is, again, your responsibility when you're adding those libraries to the ROTA to make sure that the lender does not charge. Because any library any academic special government library outside of Alberta will charge you, not only for articles but for books as well. It's standard practice, and the reason why Alberta ones don't charge us is because of TAL. So we have an agreement with the Alberta academics that they don't charge us for loans of materials, but they do charge us for article requests. So if a patron is insistent on getting this article, then they need to be aware that they will be charged that $5 fee. Most are 5 in Alberta. You might, but it depends on the policy of the library. Yeah.
We should also mention about lost technical journals, how much they charge.
Yes. Every library has a different policy on what they charge for lost or damaged materials. We know for sure that NEOS libraries charge $150 for a lost book or a damaged book. So you need to be aware of that as well, that fee will happen if you lose the book or it's dropped in a mud puddle or what have you. They also charge that fee, though, to their students if they lose the book. So it's an across-the-board fee. It's not just for interlibrary loan borrowers, but it's something you need to be aware of when you're borrowing from them. And that your patrons, if you're really worried about it, then, don't request it. But at the same time, how often does that happen? It's debatable. So, but it's something you need to be aware of, yes.
Nothing is kept on here, right? If I requested something, it's not going to be.
No, because we're in the test database, so anything happens in here won't be live, and this request actually hasn't really been submitted yet. It's just we're sending it to VDX to build a ROTA. Okay, so we've done 3 requests through BibSearch. There's The second way to do one, and I will go back to my presentation because that will work better. Okay, so the second way you can do it is through a blank request. Say you're searching in BibSearch and you can't find a request. This is very rare. You won't usually search it. We do have it set up so you can search for bib records using Amicus. They're not going to build it into the Rota, but you can search that database for bibliographic records. So you won't usually use this, but it's good to know that it's there, and in rare circumstances that you will. You can find it in several places in your work in your VDX. It should be at the top bar in your work queue. So if you're in your work queue and you scroll to the very top, you'll see it at the top bar. If you're in your advanced search, you'll see it also in the top bar, and you'll see it there in the requests page as well. So in this case, we're going, I'm going to go previous.
Either place, actually. You see the create.
Yeah.
So that opens the form.
Right, there we go, this one here.
Blank.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. So for now, we'll just go, we're going to ignore those two that we've done so far. We're going to get back to those in a second. So we just want to click on create.
Okay, so I guess I can go back, and I'm going to create a request. I'm not actually going to, but when you're doing this, you want to make sure you have as much information as possible that you were given, because without that, you're going to have a really difficult time finding something. So I would probably suggest, if you're sending it to someone specific and you know who you want to send it to, that you build them into the Rota manually, and you would select authorized. So, and then you would put in the information, the title, the author, publishing is good, a date, ISBN if there's one, if it exists.
Can you explain the difference between to be authorized and authorized again?
Yes. So to be authorized is what we're doing when we're setting it to be authorized, is that we're asking VDX to build a Rota for us. So when we set it to be authorized, it goes through that extra step. From the initial search, it goes through the extra step, and it comes back in your idle queue with a list of potential lenders. When you set it to authorized, you are building it yourself. So you're going down, you're scrolling down to those Rota details, and you're adding libraries to your Rota. And by doing that, you remove the second step.
You put the information that you need, as much as, you know, the format, everything, the ISBN, you go down, you find a library that is available, and put it into in the holdings. You've done all that, then you have authorized it. You're doing it.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Now, if you were to go through all that,
And it should say then, before you hit request, it should say authorized.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, if it flashes back to be authorized, you're setting it back to VDX, and it's going to try to build a Rota.
Yeah. Even if you've got something in there and you put it through as...
Sorry, what do you mean when it comes back? You mean it'll put back on its own?
It can. It doesn't usually, but it has happened, yeah.
What do you do then?
You just flip it back. Yeah.
Sometimes it depends on if you authorize it and then try and validate the patron. It will reload the request and it might switch it back to be authorized. So it kind of depends on the order that you do. So it's always good to just fill it all in and then go back up just to make sure that it's got the status that you need.
And at the end, before you hit request, you put authorized.
If you've got something. Because even if you've got something in the Rota and you put it to be authorized and click submit, it's going to blow away what you've got in the Rota and try again. VDX will totally rebuild that. So if you keep putting it through as to be authorized, it's never going to go anywhere. It's just going to keep trying to build a Rota.
Okay, so if I were to submit this one, we have all the bib information, we need the patron information like we've been doing before, and then we would just hit request. So the final way we do these, or requests come in for interlibrary loan, is through TAL. So okay, so typically these are patron initiated. However, this is also a great way to start an article or start a request for your patron, especially if you know they're not in there. They're not in VDX already. If you submit it through TAL Online using their username, like their barcode and their PIN number registered in your ILS, that information is automatically created in VDX. So you don't have to go through the process of creating a patron in VDX. The information is just transmitted in. Okay. So this section here, I am going to do a bit of live one. It's up to you whether you want to do it, because this will go into your live request aid. So if you just want to follow along on what I'm doing, that's more than acceptable. Okay, so I'm going to open TAL Online. And I get this screen. And I'm going to search for the title, Exiles and Islanders, the Irish Settlers of Prince Edward Island. So I'm going to just go Exiles and Islanders and see what happens. Okay, so my first result is actually the one I want. I see that it's an ebook. And we really don't want that information to be populated into VDX. So I'm going to select View All Formats and Languages, just to see if I can find the print one. And here it is at the top. So I'm going to take this one. And it looks like there should be some information populated here to find out who WorldCat thinks has this item. You usually put in your postal code. So I get a bunch of results. So I have the University of Lethbridge, Medicine Hat College, St. Mary's, Mount Royal, St. Polytechnic, Ambrose, and it goes on for about 3 pages. So we know that this book is available around the province. If you want to know, say, and TAL is really bad for this, is say you're searching for a specific audiobook, like I was searching for The Hunger Games, like I was before, it's going to list all the libraries who own the title The Hunger Games, regardless of format. So sometimes you can just go and you say, show libraries holding just this edition, right up at the small corner. So I'm going to just click on that. And it's going to just show the libraries who own this print copy of this book. And so I have a much smaller list. So it's hopefully deleted out all the people who WorldCat thinks owns the e-resource. So that's useful. So looks like they have it. I'm pretty confident. I'm going to hit request. And remember, this is live.
Yeah,
so,
if you're actually doing this right now, this request is going to your VDX.
Yeah, so, yeah. But it will hit that stage where you have to approve it. So at that point, you could get rid of it if you really wanted to follow along. But I'm going to search for Chinook Arch, and I'm going to hit headquarters because that's where my library card is. And it's going to go to the patron validation. Oh, and I think that was wrong. Oh, no. Okay. All right, so it's pulled my information from VDX, or actually not VDX, probably our ILS, actually, from Cersei Dynex. So at that point, you can select your pickup location. Because I work at headquarters, that's where I want it to go. And if you put in an email address here, it's going to pop, TAL Online is going to send you an email saying your request has been submitted. So in this case, I'm not going to worry about it, and I'm just going to confirm my request. So it was created successfully. That's fantastic. Oh, okay. So I'm going to do one more TAL request just to show you how much easier it is to do an article request within TAL. So we're going to go back, and I'm going to go back to just that one there. You'll see it's a slightly different page, but it still works. And I'm going to search for next page, another Prince Edward Island one, and it's called Volunteers in Action. See if I can get it just by that. Or say I want to put in the author. TAL Online is really good, and that if you put in the author of, his last name is Baldwin, I'm going to fairly certain that I'll get the result I want. Okay, so it's this one here. So I'm going to click on that. You can see it's the article I want, publication, the date, everything. Looks like there's libraries who might have it. Maybe I'll narrow it down just to see. And it didn't work so well there, but I'm actually fairly certain they do. So it could just be that they have electronic access to this and not print. Okay, I'm going to hit request and go through the same steps again. Okay, so the beauty of this one is that instead of searching, having to find out what journal it belongs to, what format, when it was published, the date, the pagination, the volume and issue number, TAL Online is often indexed already for the particular article. So you can search for an article title and you might get results. So that's why it's good there. And all of this information will be populated into the VDX request automatically. Okay. So there's one more thing in TAL that I want to show you that I think is really great, and I found that not a lot of people realize that it's there. So a patron, if they have submitted requests in TAL or in VDX, can actually have access to a list of all their pending requests for interlibrary loans. And from this page, I can find it under all the Alberta libraries and scroll down to my ILL requests. It's going to open up a new window, and I can just search for it. So I'm going to search for myself. And again, we're signing in with our barcode and password that you use in your ILS and checking the status. And here we are. I have a list of all the items I have out right now on interlibrary loan. So there's the top one. Okay, so the second one is one I just submitted. So this is the article, which is why it's showing the journal title there. And then the author. And the other new one here, Exiles and Islanders, the Irish Settlers of Prince Edward Island. So they're showing as new. This means that the library has not looked at them and has not submitted the request. The pending one is gone. That's good news. So there was one that was pending there. Pending means that the library has marked it will supply, but they have not marked it shipped yet. So it will stay in pending until it's been marked shipped. So here I have one that's marked shipped. This one, then once your library has received it, they've marked it received, then you'll get a status of received. When you return it, again, they'll get a status of returned, and it will stay on their account until the lending library has checked it back into their ILS. So it's very handy for those people who are watch these things and they're very eager about the stuff they get out on an interlibrary loan. Instead of having them come in all the time and you having to log into VDX and find a list of what they have requested, you can find it right here on Tell Online.
Very good for the deaf people to have.
Mm-hmm.
They have to wait if they're, like the evening or if they come through and they ask, and the deaf can't help them.
Yeah, I mean, if your staff doesn't have access to VDX, at least you have this information. I mean, you can't see where it's coming from or how long it will take. But even then, like how long it will take is highly subjective, dependent on government courier and where it is. And well, so. All right.
Whatever I'm finding, there's only a specific, say Edmonton Public is the only library that has it, but it is checked out right now, and I do the request. Will that request stay there until it becomes available and being sent to me?
No. Chances are, if they're the only ones who have it and you sent it to them, it's going to automatically pop up as no. And you'll have to resubmit it with a note saying you're the only people, can you please supply this? And if they are very nice, they will do that. However, Edmonton is a bit of a bad example for that, but just because they use a protocol called INSIP, which is an automatic communication between VDX and their ILS. So if there's an ISBN populated in that request, it's going to automatically go no, just because the system is the one who is saying yes or no in that case. So in that case, I would remove the ISBN and submit it that way. But
because it's literally a background computer program that's saying yes or no to the holds. And saying, oh, this is checked out. Nope.
yeah, so the staff don't even see those ones unless there's some reason that they have to intervene, like the record has no ISBN or something like that. So, okay, so I'm just going to log out of that. Okay, I think that's the end of mine.
Do you want to be my page turner?
Sure, I can do that. Let's get back to the presentation here.
So we made 3 or 4 different requests. And what happens to them then? They go into VDX and they go into part of that work queue that we were showing you earlier called idle. These are all of the requests that people have made, but they actually haven't gone to a lender yet. And it's actually intended to stop at this stage for a very specific reason. And that's mainly so that libraries that don't pay for interlibrary loans have a chance to kind of go over it and make sure that it's not going to go to a library that's going to charge them or anything like that. It's just that the last stop before it actually moves out the door. There's kind of, in the work queue, there's kind of 3 idles. There's idle, idle check manual, and idle auth manual. The first one is literally the sum of the other 2. We're going to start with idle auth manual, even though it was a little bit below, just because it's the one we really want to see things in. Idle auth manual means that VDX was able to build a ROTA. It just needs that final push out the door.
Okay. I'm going to go see if I can find it, see if it worked. Okay. Oops.
Working now. Should show up there.
Oh, right. Thank you. Oh, bye. Okay. So, our idle map.
So there's 5 requests sitting in auth manual here. And you'll see this one here has got Rhoda 1 of 4. This one actually found 62 libraries that have this item, and that was the Hunger Games one that we had done.
Because I had to do a book because I couldn't find the auto book.
Yeah.
But I should have one down here somewhere. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
And so even this, the Canadian Journal of Surgery, it's found and whatnot. And that's actually, let's do that one. Let's have a look at that one.
So you're hitting request, right? Or no, details.
Details.
Yes.
Yep. And so we can kind of go over it, make sure that it's got all the information we need, like volume information, because sometimes requests that come from TAL are missing bits of information. So it's just kind of good to make sure that it's got everything you need. And it's got patron details, and it's got a nice rota. It's always good to look at this. In this case, for example, Queen's University, University of Montreal, and University of Manitoba, all of those libraries are going to charge you. So if you actually were going to try and send this on, you would want to remove those and just send it to the U of A.
And the reason why I did it for us is because we have it set so Chinook Arch libraries will pay. So these paying libraries are automatically added into our rota. You shouldn't see these ones in yours.
VDX can be configured different for different libraries, and so for your guys' system, it doesn't actually try to call the Amicus catalog at all. You can bib search from it, but when it's trying to actually find lenders to send to, it doesn't look at that one because it's pretty much a 50-50 split of paying, no paying. And because you are no pay, I'm not even going to go there because it's going to cause me trouble. So we've got it set up to basically look at the Alberta publics, the Alberta academics. Yes?
Well, you were done? Okay. I just had a question. Okay, so let's say you want to take some of those out of there.
Mm-hmm. That's where we're going right next,
okay.
actually.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's good. So if we click on request, at the very, very top or bottom, because we're in the details.
Where are we? I'm lost. Where are we?
You go back to this little section.
Okay.
So actually, let's go back to the work queue for a second. Let's go right back to the work queue. So everybody on the work queue here? And do you have anything in your idle auth manual? Okay, so click on that. And every single one of those should have a rota. It should have one of some number. These are ones that it could build a rota, it found lenders, you literally just need to push it on. To push it on, we're going to click on request, either from this list or the other one. And you'll kind of see where we were before. It opened up the request. You can actually do any kind of editing that you would want to do to it. This is actually kind of handy because if this was a TAL request and a TV season, quite often the season number doesn't come through. And here would be a good place to just add that really quick that, oh, I need season whatever. We're lost.
Okay, go back. Yeah.
No, now that we're here.
Okay, so we're here.
You could go either way, actually. You can click action request here, or from in details, that button still shows up.
Oh,
Okay, so we can look at details to see what.
Okay.
Yeah, and see at the top there,
And for
action
the
request.
click on action?
Yep.
Then? Okay. Okay.
Okay, so it kind of feels like we're going in a loop. But this is just sort of a final approval. We're going to go over it, and we're going to scroll down to the rota section. I think you might have gone a bit far. Yeah, and that's, again, you won't get those out-of-province lenders like we will, because your VDX is set up to not look at those because they're going to charge you.
There you go. Because, yeah, all it says U of A.
Yeah, U of A is the only one that can provide it for free.
Under our.
Well, except that it's an article and they won't provide it for free. But
Well, yeah, right.
if it was a book, they would provide it for free.
Cheaper.
Yeah, oh, okay, there you go. Because you put much.
So your rota looks okay. Now, say you wanted to actually, a lot of people only have one in their rota, but say you wanted to remove that.
Oh, yeah.
Super, super simple. Just click on that and click remove on the side there, and they will disappear.
Oh, so if you had okay, okay. You would highlight it here.
And say, in fact, since I was looking at a University of Calgary record, I actually do know that for some, University of Calgary has this item. For some reason, it wasn't added in. I don't know why, but we can say, oh, well, I know they have it. I saw it, just saw it sitting on the shelf. I can go University of Calgary or search by their code. Oops. Okay, I spelled it wrong. Let's try ACU. And it's just added it to the rota.
You can put in University of Calgary, or if you actually know the code, you can put that in as well.
I've got a question about searching for a library.
Mm-hmm.
I've been searching for Lethbridge Public just previously, and I don't get it. I get the same ones that I get here. I get the different universities. So what do I put in to get that one?
Lethbridge Public doesn't do their own lending because they're a part of Chinook Arch. So whenever you borrow from Lethbridge Public, you have to borrow from ALCA, which is the code for Chinook Arch Regional Library System. Yeah.
So then over here, you should choose, any one to have.
Or then you not.
Yeah, it's always best if you get.
So you would just put yeah.
So in this particular case, if you're searching the University of Alberta or the University of Calgary, you might see that a couple branches came up. If you ever see that, send it to the main library.
Oh, University of Calgary.
If you're ever in doubt, send it to the main library, because even if it's held at the health services or something, they will know that and they'll come back and say, actually, please send this directly to health services. Whereas if they don't answer, you could send it off and never get a reply. So sending it to the main branch is always the safest.
So that's what we would do.
Yeah.
That's if it was in Lethbridge.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm practicing getting it in my brain.
Okay.
That's interesting. Just have, just terminate these now.
Yes.
So are there other libraries besides
quick
Lethbridge
action.
Public who do it that way?
Yes.
Is there a list of those places?
Yes, we can provide that. For this system, 5 of the 7 systems do all the lending on behalf of their libraries. So that includes Chinook Arch, Shortgrass, Peace, Northern Lights, and thinking of some other, Yellowhead is the other one. So 5. Yeah, do all the lending on behalf of their local library. So if you're sending something to Medicine Hat Public, you'd have to search for, actually, right now, Medicine Hat Public, in a few weeks, you'd have to search for Shortgrass. So, and the same here, if someone wanted to borrow something from Bonnyville, they'd have to send it to Northern Lights. So, but we do have a handy list if that's actually available on the ILL website. We can show you where it is. That gives it, it's very good. So you'll just, it's an alphabetical list of all the libraries in the province, and then the code you would request from for that specific item.
So that's really the only one we're going to do out of the Oct manual, because it's pretty straightforward. It's built a rota. You just need to submit it. The ones that are going to be a little bit more high maintenance are
Oops. I did that again.
the idle check manual. 9 times in 10, they end up in check manual because it couldn't build a rota, but there are other reasons, and we'll go over all the different reasons why things end up in rota. But check manual is literally, VDX is saying, there's something wrong with this request, I need you to look at it. So if we click on that, do you want to maybe switch to what somebody who's got more need?
Yeah, for sure. That's, yeah. Actually, didn't need to do that. Let's try Lethbridge. Yeah, I have to log out then.
Anybody have any questions while we switch logins here? It's a nauseating number, isn't it? We're going to jump into Edmonton's queue here for a minute and look at their check manual, because they've got a lot more to look at than what we had in ours. So if we click on that, Wait to load the 2,321 requests. If you're ever feeling, you know, that you're overwhelmed or something like that, you could always just load up Edmonton's work queue and be like, oh, you know, this is... So the first couple here, say Rhoda 0 of 0, 0 of 0, it couldn't find lenders for this for one reason or another, and we're going to look at that in a second. But these ones down here, it built a Rhoda, but it still ended up in check manual. So let's maybe have a look at CY. So if we click on details of any one of those, we scroll all the way to the bottom. This is where it puts the log messages. So if VDX does something and needs to notify you, this is where you're going to find that. In this particular case, the log message says this request may be a duplicate request of this number. And basically what that's saying is that VDX found a request that has the same patron information and the same bibliographic information. And it thinks that you should review it before you pass it on. There's all kinds of reasons why people might still actually want that. Like if they borrowed the book, returned it, and need to borrow it again. That's a legitimate, you can push that on. But sometimes if they're just a little too eager, Intel Online, they accidentally request the same item twice or whatever, those you can just complete.
So if it's saying that there's another duplicate request, then you should definitely complete it. And so if there's only the one.
Well, what I actually like to do first is to take that number and check it. Because it could be from like 3 weeks ago or something like that. And so if there's another new request, maybe they want that book again. So I wouldn't just complete it and assume.
No, okay.
But it's good to do a bit of investigation to kind of figure out what's the story between the two.
And that's what you're doing right now?
Yeah, she's just putting in that other number. It said this is a duplicate of this request.
Yeah.
And this one was received in September. So in this particular case, because it was received, you can actually see additional service details will tell you when the request came in, like what day the request showed up.
Sorry, where did you go to? Where are you going? It's hard to
Yeah, I know, it's such tiny print. We just went back to requests and then put in that number that it said, like it was a duplicate of 1234. So we went to requests and put in 1234.
And of course you picked
What you're seeing is probably different because we logged into Edmonton.
but just in ILL request search, you are looking for
the number, the ILL number.
That one, okay.
Yeah.
So it's, okay.
It gave us an ILL request number, so we're going to search that number and just sort of kind of go over the details to make sure that they're not a total legitimate duplicate of each other. So this one came into VDX on the 17th of August. So we're going to keep that in mind, and we're going to go back to the work queue to look at the original request that triggered the search, which was Night Mist, was it?
Yeah, I think, or it could have been the Night Vale. I think it was Night Mist.
Up a little bit. So we're looking for the service details again.
Where did it go? Oh, there it is.
Oh, sorry. Let's go back. So this one came in on the 28th of September. That was actually after the patron had returned it. So this patron wants this book again. It's showing up as a duplicate because they've already had it, but they actually still want it again. So we can go ahead and request this one. So we click on action.
You don't need to put in any information so that they understand that you do want it again?
Yeah, it is a good idea if you're sending it to the same library.
Yeah.
To,
won't they just come back and say,
yeah, you just requested this from us or whatever.
Yeah. You'll get the same thing right back if you don't change something, won't it?
No, that was literally just VDX going, I've done all the work and I'm ready to submit this on, but I think this is a duplicate and I think you should see it. By submitting it, you're not changing anything. Like by flagging it that way and telling you that it was a duplicate, it didn't do
You're
it.
saying, yeah, I do want this.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh. I just assumed that they would come back and say, yeah.
If you're sending it to the same library, like I said, you might want to add a note because they might see that and be like, God, I sent this just out to them like 2 weeks ago or whatever. Do they really want it again? And that kind of clears up that confusion, you know. But VDX won't block this request for, you know, like it won't prevent you from submitting it because it's a duplicate or anything. It's just literally going to go, I think this is a duplicate, have a look. So Jen just added a note that says, please send this again. This is not a duplicate request.
Okay, or say the person who lent it to you last time was actually Grand Prairie Public Library. I would just pull that out. You could go, well, I don't want to send it to them because they just provided it. So highlight it, remove it, and send it to Northern Lights instead. Yeah.
This can be completely manipulated at your own will. So if you click on, say, like Black Falls, you can, and use these over here, you can move it to the very top, where you can kind of move it to the very bottom, up, down.
So it's going to take from the very top of your list?
Yes, and work down.
Oh, that's good to know. I didn't know that.
Handy, especially in cases like yours. It probably takes a little while to get libraries or books out to some of the more remote places, so the closer the better.
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't know that the order that it had any significance.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it will always try to put Alberta Public Libraries first, then Alberta Academic, and then beyond. Alrighty.
Okay.
So
Suppose we're in the test. We're good to go. Hit request.
And so if we go back up to the work queue, we're going to look at some of the other common reasons why things can show up there. One of the more common ones, and actually, if your library owns this item, VDX is going to send this request here, and it's going to show up saying local location on Rhoda. Do you have, I guess you got a screen.
I've got, yeah, a screen for the presentation for that. Oh, sorry. You can go back.
Local location on Rhoda. What that's saying is VDX tried to build a Rhoda, and the first place it found was the Northern Lights Library or some other tract library. And if that's the case, for say your copy was lost or something like that, you can just remove yourself and push it on, just like the duplicate. It's not gonna prevent it. It's just saying, look at this, drawing your attention to this. And so you just
we'll get that, you know, and what we want is a large print. And so then you go in and put, you know, a note saying you want large print, and that's why you don't want it from track because you need it from TAL, because TAL has it in large print.
Exactly, yeah. So you'd remove yourself from the Rhoda and push it on. Another, probably the most common one, item not located, Rhoda is empty. As Jen mentioned earlier, the part of VDX that does Rhoda building, adding libraries to the lender string, it works almost exclusively off of ISBN. It tries to do an author title search, but it always fails. So what it's saying here is, I can't find anything. You're going to have to manually find me a lender. And there's kind of a couple of different ways you can do that. You could search TAL online and try and find a library or something like that, or you could do a bid search. If you know the library, then you can just manually add it. If you're not entirely sure, use the report a problem and send us a report a problem, and I will help you. Oh, is it lunchtime?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll just finish up this real quick. Actually, that's pretty much it. If you, like I said, if you know the library, you can always add it in that where we were searching for the University of Calgary.
Is that the only time it'll say road is empty is when it doesn't have a lot, it can't find the library?
Yeah.
That is what road is empty means. We cannot find the library.
Yeah.
Period.
But it doesn't necessarily mean there isn't one. It's just it couldn't find one off of that ISBN.
I'm just
Yeah.
understanding the terminology there. That's what it means.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And those are the most common reasons why things will end up in that queue anyway. Is it couldn't find an ISBN, or couldn't find a lender because it didn't have an ISBN, or it thinks you own it, or it thinks it's a duplicate. Those are the three most common reasons why you're going to see something in there. I actually cannot think of another one. So.
Okay. So I believe we are going to break for lunch now. So we'll see you, I think, in an hour. Is it? Yep. All right. So you want this and then this, or stop recording first?
Yeah. We're just going to kind of go back to where we were just right before lunch. We're going to kind of look at some of those ones that didn't, that ended up in check manual for various reasons.
So when you go back to the PowerPoint? Or?
Yeah, just so that it's consistent with which screen. So this request showed up in our check manual. And it couldn't build a rota for some reason. Just quick glancing at it, can anybody tell why it didn't build a rota? I know it's really hard to see, I'm sorry about that.
No ISBN.
Exactly. It's missing an ISBN. So we got a couple options. We could try and find an ISBN for that item. Maybe the record that it was originally started with didn't have one. You could just add that in and put it as to be authorized again, see if it builds a rota. Or you can just manually add it, if you know where to send it. So this next one, any guesses? It's got an ISBN, so it's certainly not that. I don't know if you can actually see that from there, but the publication date is 2015.
Oh.
So there's a very good chance that they have a record for it, but no holdings yet. So chances are, if basically VDX, when it calls the catalog, if that status doesn't say available or checked in, it's going to say no. If it's checked out, if it's repair, any other status other than checked in, VDX is going to go, oh, that means no, and it's not going to add that library to the rota.
So if it comes back that it's checked out or in use, so what do we do then? Do we just wait a few weeks and then resubmit it?
If there's no other lenders, you can submit it right away and add an item note saying you're the only location, please place a hold. We, in Alberta, typically encourage people to not assume that they want you to place a hold and place a hold, because you might be the first in a list of, say, 62 lenders. And if you're placing a hold, but you have to wait 3 weeks and the next lender could send it right away, that's not going to do you any good. So
if it's in end of rota and it's in use and maybe it's really new like that, and we tell our patient that we're not going to be able to get it right now, maybe try again in 6 months or something, like whatever we say to them, we can go ahead and complete that because it's not going to come through to us later, right? We're not going to end up, it's not going to show up to us. If it says end of road, it's saying we're done with you.
it's not going to go anywhere on its own. You can reactivate it. You could actually leave, like say it's not going to be available for 3 months. You could leave that request in that queue for 3 months and then reactivate it when you need it. So it's kind of up to you whether or not you want to complete it now and rebuild it later, or if you just want to leave it. Me, I'm one of those people, I cannot stand to have a long list of emails or anything like that. I like zeros and clean. So I would probably complete that and tell the patron to come back in 6 months. Because also then too, you have to keep in mind, 6 months from now, I got to remember to go and actually do that.
Or they can change their mind and then you bring it in and they've gone to Honolulu or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or they went and bought it because they got tired of waiting for it, but they didn't let you know. So
I'm like you, I would complete it and clean it up.
Yeah. Put the responsibility back on the patron. Yeah.
If you wanted to.
So here's another one that failed. Publication date says 2004, so it's not that. It's got an ISBN, so it's not that. In this particular case, if we were to actually look for this and try and search for it again, it's not going to show up anywhere in Alberta. This ref source here, albertaworldcat.org, any request that comes through TAL is going to show that. So if you ever see that, you know it was a patron-made request. When a patron is searching TAL online, they can actually search WorldCat worldwide. Unfortunately, you can't request most of those items because they're going to charge you. There's no happy medium to turn that off for the patron. So you're going to get these requests for items that are held like in the States or things like that. So if you ever see, so if you ever get a case like this where you're like, it's got all the information it needs, it's got an ISBN, but I cannot find a lender, feel free to use the report a problem, send it to us, and we'll look at it. And we'll try. Generally, I try to find a library in Canada. If I can't find a library in Canada, I will look in the States, but before I send it to the States, I'll usually say, look, I couldn't find anybody in Canada. This library in the States has it. They're going to charge us this much, and it's going to cost this much to return it. Do you want me to actually go ahead with that?
So you're saying everything else is right, it says the WorldCat thing. We go in to do a bib search and we can't find it?
Yeah.
That's possible?
Yeah. WorldCat can see literally holdings from all around the world. Denmark, you name it and claim it, they're on WorldCat. So it's kind of a bit of a drawback for some people with TAL Online. Like for us, it's great because, like I said, Chinook Arch is willing to pay a ludicrous amount for our interlibrary loans. So we can send stuff to the States, no problem. But for you, it's a little bit of an issue. So if you're ever in doubt, send a report a problem. You're like, this isn't building a road, I can't find a lender. Have a look at it, see what you can do. And we will do that. Before we went for lunch, we actually already did a duplicate request, so we're going to kind of skip over that. This request, again, I'm assuming you can't actually see it, so I'm going to read it. It says Desperate Housewives, but there's no season involved or any information regarding season. It just has the author and the title. So if we look down in the log messages, it's saying more than one bib record is located. So what happened was VDX started calling the catalogs. Let's say Calgary Public. Called Calgary Public and said, I need Desperate Housewives. Calgary Public's catalog said, sure, I've got 8 records, one for each season. Which one do you want? VDX said, that's a good question. Let me get back to you. And it moved that request into check manual because it doesn't have enough information to tell which of those records it needs. So more than one bib record located means it found the item, but it found the more than one item. It found the item more than once at one library, so it doesn't know which record to actually request. After you've submitted the request, we push them out the door. They're going to move to pending. Pending means that it's actually sitting with the lending library and waiting for a response from them. It will stay with a pending library for 5 business days before it moves on to the next. And 5 is a little bit misleading because the day it came in doesn't count. So it's actually kind of 6 business days. After 6 business days, if there's no response from them, it's going to try and move it on to the next lender. It's going to try to automatically cancel it and move it on to the next lender. If that lender says, yes, we will supply the request, that timer stops. And that request could sit with them till the cows come home. It literally will stay there indefinitely until they mark it shipped or not supplied. Make sense? Cool. Pending greater than 2 weeks. These are requests that they've literally been sitting with the library for longer than 14 days. They've said yes, but they haven't shipped it. And now there's all kinds of reasons why that can happen. The most common being that they, like in your case, Northern Lights HQ places the hold, and then the member library retrieves it from their shelf and sends it to HQ. But if the member library couldn't find that item, they might not necessarily tell HQ. And so that request would move into pending greater than 2 weeks because they're waiting for the hold, you're not sending the hold. It's a good idea to kind of keep an eye on those. And if you ever see a request that has been sitting for longer than 2 weeks, just use the send public message. On any request from that drop-down action list, you will see send public note. On any given request.
Like add private note?
Oh, under action?
Yeah.
Oh.
Add private note here.
Yeah, send public note.
So what's the difference between send public note and add private note?
Add private note literally just adds a note to the request and only your library can see it.
Oh, okay.
Send public note sends a message to the lending library.
Further down. So it doesn't go down further.
Oh, where is it? Oh, like here? Here's it?
In this case, it's not pending yet.
Oh.
So it doesn't actually, this request hasn't gone to the
right.
lender, so that there's nobody who can send that request. So,
Oh, it would be in
okay.
this drop.
We do.
Okay.
So what's it called? Send public?
Yeah, send public note right there.
Okay. I was just on.
That's what he's talking
You-
about will also be already.
Yes.
But if you, we were
Yeah.
curious,
Yeah, you can
public
certainly.
note?
That's totally didn't receive. Oh, this is in the test
And so
database.
who's
Never mind.
that public note going to?
Whichever library it's currently pending with. So in this case, 1 of 5, whatever
So
library.
what's the appropriate thing to do? Just say, could you let us know the status?
Yeah, usually all I say is, can you please supply this item? Or if they said, we'll supply, can you still supply this item? Super brief, to the point. Don't have to have any kind of preamble explaining which request you're talking about or anything like that, because that will all come through with that note.
And you put that under the public note again, so are you, we're talking about again? It doesn't go under private, was it a private note?
No, send public note.
Public note, okay,
Private note is literally just for you.
right, okay, great. All right, thanks.
When would you use patron note?
Patron note, there's all kinds of different reasons that different people use it. Sometimes people will send that to say that we've received your request, thank you very much, we put it through. Or you could use that to say, I'm sorry, this item we actually couldn't find, and get you a library that's willing to lend it to us. So.
Okay, so you have sent a public note and they don't have the book. Are they sending you a public note back?
Hopefully not, it's possible, but they should actually not supply it. They should action the request not supply, which will send it onto our next slide, actually.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. So we wouldn't hear from them, we would just hear it that way.
Yeah, through VDX. That's my things are mixed up. Okay. So you sent that message. Can you still supply it? The library is like, oh no, I'm sorry, this is missing from our shelf. So they've not supplied it. VDX is going to automatically try and move the request to the next lender in the list. If there's nobody in the list after them, it's going to move down to end of rota. These are the requests that they've gone through every single lender and they've all said no. And again, we can reactivate them from there and try and add more lenders, or we can complete it if you literally cannot find anybody else.
Well, it's good to know that once it's in end of rota, and if we were the publication and complete it, then you don't have to be worried that it's gonna come back and,
No.
and we're gonna go, oh, I wonder who this book goes to.
No, things in end of rota will never leave that. So you complete them to get rid of them or request them to push them to reactivate them.
Right, okay.
So this is an example of some of the different responses that you could get for not supplied. The very, very first one there is that they say they don't own the item. And they might not own it exactly, especially academics. If you send a request and your request says 1999 edition, and they only have the 2001, they're probably going to turn that request down. Because with academics, the date of the information is so important. They're assuming that you know that and you want this specific edition. So if you're looking for, it doesn't matter which copy you get, it's a good idea to sort of change that and just put in any edition is acceptable. You'll sort of lessen the amount of stuff that comes back to NLLS that way. So the second one here is, again, like what I was saying, most libraries won't automatically place a hold unless you ask them to. So they've literally just said, sorry, our copy's in use on loan. And then this one down here, they're literally just saying, our copy's referenced, we will not circulate it. A lot of times when people answer that sort of thing, they'll say, I can photocopy part of it for you. Do you want us to do that? But if you cannot find any other lenders, it's truly, totally dead, you just complete the request. Or, like I said, you can reactivate it by clicking on request, and it will go back to that same open screen, and you can add modify details or add lenders to the ROTA. If you're trying to reactivate one that's an end of ROTA, you'll still see the old ROTA. It will just be grayed out. So it shows you who you've already tried, which is really, really handy. Especially if it's something like it's in use on loan or whatever. You're like, well, I don't want to send it back to Parkland. They already said no, it's in use. So it's just kind of a handy little reference. So yeah, it does show up just under battery run. You don't see that on your test database, unfortunately, but on the live VDX, you will see report a problem on the left-hand column. When you're submitting a report a problem, please include the request number. It doesn't actually pull that from the request that you're working on. So I don't need a whole lot of preamble. Just say, find me lenders. This didn't build a ROTA or whatever. Find me lenders. If I have any questions, I'll contact you. You can actually even take screenshots and upload those too. If it's something really weird and wonky or whatever, you can take screenshots. And if you print off anything from this presentation, print this off. Post it front and center, because this is the most difficult thing to remember about VDX. There's 3 actions that on the surface pretty much all behave the same way, but they're very, very, very different. Cancel, terminate, and complete. Cancel action.
Can we get a copy of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll send out the presentation to everybody, but it is a really good idea to print this off. I had such a hard time when I first started with VDX. I printed that off and kept it in front of me for probably a good year before it really sunk in. Cancel is only canceling with the current lender. So if you've got a request that's pending with 5 lenders, or if there's 5 lenders in the ROTA, and you cancel it, it's only canceling with the first lender. It also will wait for a response. It's not going to actually move on to the next lender until the first lender says, you've canceled this? Okay, yes. Cancel, yes. They might say cancel no if they've shipped the item already but forgot to notify you. So there might be reasons why they would say cancel no. I can't cancel this for you. It's already in the mail, sorry. Once they reply, cancel yes, it will move on to the next lender. Make sense? Cool.
Are you talking about in the action part of it? There's no cancel. There's terminate, complete, add, and send.
It's probably not pending yet then.
Oh, no. Okay.
It wouldn't just normally come up.
No.
Oh, okay.
The actions that are available to you change depending on what stage of the request it's at.
Oh,
I should have mentioned that, sorry. So beyond cancel, we can terminate a request. Terminate will send a cancel to the very current lender, and it will not move on to the next lender. It's assuming that you do not want this book anymore. So it's more like a cancel than cancel. Completing a request can be a little bit misleading because you think it's actually doing something, but it's not. Completing is kind of an acknowledgement of the current status. So if you complete a request that's pending, it's just going to disappear from whatever queue it's in. It's not going to change the status, so if it's pending with the lending library, it's still pending with the lending library. It's just gone from that queue at the moment. You can still search for it by searching the title or the request number, but you will no longer be able to find it in the queue. Well, like the terminates, for example, that you were having an issue with, that wouldn't go away. When you terminate it, it's going to sit and terminate until you complete it. And the main reason for that is VDX doesn't know what your workflow is like. So when you terminate a request, you probably need to notify the patron. So it terminates the request, it puts them all in that queue, and you could go through that queue, notify the patron. Once you've done that, you can complete it. So it's just kind of an acknowledgement.
yeah.
Yeah, just more for like tracking purposes and things like that. So,
It's really good for ones like the end of rota or not supplied because you're not sending the request out. So to get rid of that request, you're just completing it. You don't need to, in that stage, since it's not pending with anyone, you don't need to cancel, you don't need to complete, obviously. So you're just completing it just to get it out of the way. So.
yeah. So for example, if you had a pending queue that had 6 items in it and you went through and completed all 6 of those items, those are still pending with the lending library and you're still going to get those items. It's just you've acknowledged at what stage they're at and you can move on.
So what you're saying is if it's in pending and now the patron doesn't want it because it's not there for a month, then I would go to terminate
Yes,
and then to complete.
exactly. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Does anybody have any questions about cancel, terminate, or complete, or? So, will supply and ship. I'm going to pass it back to Jen for the will supply and ship.
Okay, so I'm going to continue with the rest of the request process. And so it's been sitting, someone marked it will supply. Will supply indicates the intention of being able to supply the item, but doesn't necessarily promise it. So it goes, I think I can supply this. I'm going to place a hold on it, and we'll see if we can find it. And so, say in our case at Chinook Arch, we say we'll supply, and then we send it off, and we place a hold, say in our ILS, and we place a hold on an item that belongs to Lethbridge. Lethbridge ships it to HQ, and then we mark it shipped. So once in a while, and I think there was one in our email today, we get an email from LPL saying, sorry, we can't find this book. So we go in and then we mark it non-supply. So we have that ability to do that. So will supply doesn't necessarily mean, yes, you are going to get this book. It means we think we can provide this book. Okay, so the next step is that the item comes in and the shipping library marks it shipped. And it will move from the pending queue to the shipped queue in your work queue. So, this stage is important because it gives the borrower a time frame when they can expect the book to come. General time frame, right? Because we don't really know how quick it's going to come when it's coming through government courier. We've heard some people can get it in a few days, other people wait weeks. So, or Canada Post, I mean, who knows what could happen to delay it. But it also, again, updates the status in Towel and Line for the patron side. They can see that it marks, it goes from pending, and it will say pending if it's marked will supply. It will show shipped if it's been marked shipped. So the item has been shipped and you receive it either in government courier or in the mail. You need to receive the request. So you can do this by going into your work queue and you scroll down to the bottom or partway down, and you can either select it in shipped queue, shipped greater than 2 weeks, or you can search for it in the ILL request search page. So that's where they should be. Sometimes if it hasn't been marked shipped, but they did ship it, you'll have to find it in pending.
I just happened to look in my ship, and it was the last week I went in and I made my changes to the already receipt. And today when I go in here, it showed me if it's still showing ship not received.
We're in the test database, so this is just a snapshot of what you had last week.
Yeah, it was refreshed last week or the week before. So any of these ones you may go, oh, I did that one already. I swear I did. You did, yeah.
All of them are showing.
Because that's the next. The action that VDX will display in the dropdown is the action that it thinks is the next most logical step. Yeah, it's showing you receipt because that's sort of the next stage of the request.
Good.
Feel free, it's a test database, you're not going to do any damage.
Yeah. So from this record I have here, I'm going to action received, and it's just right there.
So, yeah,
If it didn't show received, I just hit the drop-down menu, click received. So it may not necessarily show up there. It should, but it doesn't always behave the way we want it to. So, and this is the form that's going to pop up when you're going to receive it. So you can modify it if you need to. You can put in a local due date. If you wanted, you can attach the local item barcode if you want. You can add a public note to the lender, say, you know, I received this and the front cover was a bit torn when I received it in the mail. Gives them an indication that it was like that when you received it in shipping. You can add a private note for your own intention. Say at Chinook Arch, we add private notes when we receive something for one of our libraries. We say, oh, we received it at headquarters and we're shipped it on to the lending library or the requesting library. So it's just a note for our case to know when it entered into Chinook Arch and we moved it on in our own delivery system.
A good example of that would be, say, if an item arrived in some kind of special packaging or something like that, and if you wanted to go back in the same packaging and the same person isn't going to do the job. So you could just say, came in a blue box or whatever. You know. Oh
yeah, or once in a while the library might send it in one of their own special bags. And we really, really want to get those back because they're very protective of them. Not so much the Alberta Publics, that's fine, we just share and share alike. But say you borrow something from Vancouver Public, they you know, ship it in one of their pretty cloth bags. They want that cloth bag back. So it's a good place to track it for sure.
In the private?
In the private note. Yeah, if you send it in the public note, Vancouver's going to get that note.
They'll be like, we know we sent it. I've done that before, actually. When I first started with VDX, I accidentally put a public note in, or a private note in the public field, and the library contacted me going, I don't get your message. We told you this. I'm like, yeah, sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what happens, you receive the item and you check it out to your patron in whatever way you do. So at Chinook Arch, when we receive the item, we add a brief title record in Cersei Dynex, and we place a hold for the patron. So the patron's notified, they come in, they pick it up, we check it out to them. So they have it. And then they come along 2 weeks later, 5 days before it's due back or sooner, depending on the, or later, depending on the patron. It's like, I'm not done with this yet. Can I have a renewal? The first place I would try to get a renewal is in VDX. So if you go into the record, say you'll find them in your received queue, all the ones that are currently out to your patrons or they haven't picked them up yet or whatever, you can go in and you'll get to be able to select renew. So it may or may not be the first one in the list. I may have dropped down the menu and clicked on renew, but the option should be there if it's marked received. Okay, so when you open it up, you'll get this screen here. So it has the status of received. It's got the title, the author, the due date. It has an option to put in your own requested due date. So your patron goes, I'm on vacation for another 3 weeks. Can I, have an extension? You can put in a specific date that you're asking for. In that case, it's always good to add a bit of a public note because it helps the lender decide whether they want to give that renewal. So, for instance, a few months ago, we had a request for a homebound patron. Said, we need a few months or a month more. Can we get an extension? And I was like, homebound patron? Sure. So I'll go in. As long as there's no holds, I'll go in and I'll say yes to the renewal. And then that is good. So the public notes are really, really good for that kind of thing, especially if there's a very good reason why they want the renewal.
So we do that, we hit renew, and then will something come back to us?
Yep, not right away. It will, but once the library responds, then yes, it will move down.
What does that look like?
It shows up in the renewal queue, or in the work queue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I have a picture of that, but I can.
Yep.
So what would happen, say that the library, so the person comes in 2 days before it's due, it says he wants it renewed, and then we get a note to try to renew it, saying that they will not renew it, so we can still have to send it back.
At LQ, at least, we can only speak of Chinook Arch, but at Chinook Arch, when we loan out an item to an interlibrary loan patron, we kind of give them some conditions about requesting renewal. They have to do it a couple of days ahead of time. Then we explain to them that we're going to ask for a renewal, but we're not guaranteed it. And just so you know, if we let you know that this item hasn't been renewed, we expect it back right away. So.
Looking for one, but I can't find one. Maybe there's one in Edmonton's queue.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, that's an option as well.
Sometimes you get that from renewal day when they send it.
Yeah.
They'll say that there's no renewals on.
Yeah, quite often they'll do that. U of C is really, really bad for having a short loan period and saying they won't renew. Quite often, though, if you actually request a renewal, again, so long as one of their students doesn't need it, they'll usually say yes.
Yeah. So if we're seeing in the work queue here, a renew pending, so a request that you've sent out will show up right here under received. It says renew pending, and there's 5 currently pending with this borrower. And so there's a list.
And then once they answer it, it will actually remove from this list.
Yeah, they'll say yes or no.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't move to a queue that says answer yes or no. You have to kind of search for it. But generally, you know which items you tried to renew. And when it disappears from that list, you go looking for it to see the answer.
Into overdue.
Yeah, that's possible.
All right. Okay, so the patrons brought it back. It's time to return the item. To find these items, again, you could search for it in the request page, search for it by title, by request number, or you could go into your received queue and find it there. So in this case, that's probably where I found it, was in the received queue, and we're just going to mark it returned. By again finding it in the drop-down menu if it's not number 1. So when you choose the returned action, you'll see this screen here. You'll see the same kind of stuff we normally see. The date, the status, the author, the return date, which is the current date you're in there. Return via, you can mark it if you want. We don't really honestly care that much if you use that field or not, but you can mark it returned by Canada Post, by government courier, by your own courier, van courier, yeah. We don't use the insurance amount or in currency. Again, you could choose to send a public note if you wanted. A tracking number maybe.
Sorry, how long does it stay in the return? Does it come off after a certain amount of time?
It should probably remove it when they mark it checked in, correct?
Yeah. There are cases where it would never get removed if the library doesn't use VDX.
Oh.
So if you return an item and the library doesn't use VDX, they have no real way of telling you that they've checked the item in. And VDX relies on that to remove those from those queues. It's not a big deal if it stays there indefinitely. Yeah. And I bet you if I were to look at those, they're probably all academic libraries. Because the academics don't use VDX, they use a different type of ILL software. And they do communicate together fairly well, but it's not as ideal as this VDX. So they don't have the exact same actions that we do. Lending. We're going to breeze through lending because honestly, you don't really do you don't do any lending. It's more just so that you can kind of see what your lender is seeing when they get a request from you. When you submit a request to a lender, it shows up in their lending side under new requests. New requests expiring today, those are those ones that have hit that 5-day limit and are about to move on. So when a lending library sees a request, a new request, they go in, they look up the title, and they bring it up in their ILS, and they place a hold for that library. Then they either answer will supply or not supply, depending on if they can or not. And once they do that, it actually is going to bump back. Go back one.
Sure.
Once they say yes or no, it's going to go to will supply if they can say yes. If they said no, it's just going to disappear. It's not going to be on their queue at all anymore. But once they say will supply, it's going to come here, and then it's going to stay there until they mark it shipped. Then it's going to stay in shipped until the borrowing library marks it received, at which point it's going to actually go down to, I don't think it's actually on that screen anymore, but it will disappear from there. And then again, once they start returning something, it's going to start, these are items that you've loaned out that people are sending back to you. So in this particular case, whichever library this is, they have 138 items coming back to their library in the mail right now. And then once they mark that checked in, it's going to disappear. That's pretty much it. I talked about the lending life cycle, going from new requests, shipping. Actually, I'm going to get you to jump back upwards. If they request a renewal, it's going to show up down in here on the lender side, and the lender is going to have to watch that. When they see a number pop up in there, they're going to go in and they're going to try and renew it or not. And same with this here. This overdue is kind of interesting actually because VDX doesn't automatically declare something overdue. It looks at the date and it says this should be overdue, so I'm going to put this into your overdue queue, but it doesn't tell the borrower unless the borrower sends an overdue notice, like actually marks it overdue. Kind of, like I said, I wouldn't worry about retaining too much of this just because this is more just to kind of understand the bigger picture of things. Okay. Yeah. One more. So like I said, they've got 5 days to respond. And in this case, Northern Lights is going to basically be placing all of your holds and then answering will supply. There's some libraries that have a script to do that automatically. Edmonton, Calgary, and Chinook Arch are the only ones that have that piece of software to place holds automatically. So if you send a request to us, you're going to get a response almost instantly because the computer's doing it. Whereas if you were to send it to any other library, it might be a couple of days before they can actually get around to answering those. So typically, yeah, those are the three answers that a lending library is going to send a borrowing library. They're going to either say, yes, we can supply this. They're going to say, no, we can't supply it. Or they're going to say, we can supply it under this condition. And that might be, you can't lend this outside of your library. It's reference only. We'll lend it to you, but your patron has to look at it in the library. Do you agree to these terms? And then you will have to either answer yes or no before that request will do anything else.
That would be conditional.
Yeah. And there is, in that work queue, there is a spot that says conditional on both sides. So if the lender sends a request or a condition, it shows up on their side. If you as a requester are sent a conditional, it will show up conditional on the borrowing side, and you have to click on that, read what it says, and either agree to their terms or not. If you say no, it's going to treat that as a cancel and move it on to the next lender if there is one. Make sense? Cool. So then once the hold has been placed on the item and it comes into whatever library actually does the shipping, that library is then going to mark it shipped. They also check it out in their ILS, pack it up either for government courier, Canada Post, or track courier. If you do send things by Canada Post, we do have a link to the Canada Post shipping tool on our website, so it's really, really handy if you have to try and send anything Canada Post, because it just sort of automatically fills in all that, as opposed to having to handwrite out waybills or anything. Yeah. If the borrowing library requests a renewal, again, it's going to show up in their renewal requests on the lending side. And then they just go in, pop in, look at those, see what they want for a due date, and see if they can actually accommodate it and answer yes or no. In the renewal queue, you can see all of the requests that somebody's asked for an extension on. It's good to make sure that you don't have a hold in your own ILS for the item if you're going to actually try and answer a renewal.
Okay.
And then, as I mentioned, when a borrowing library returns an item, that item is going to show up in the returned spot on the lending queue until you check it in, and then it's going to disappear. Once they check it in VDX, they then discharge it in their ILS and send it back to the owning library. And once it's checked in VDX, it will be complete. You can still find the request, but it will not show up in any queues anymore. It's done. And that's pretty much it for the lending side. There is a few other little things I kind of wanted to show you real quick that we don't normally cover in training, but they're extremely handy. One of those is bulk action. Libraries that deal with really, really high volume find this incredibly handy. You'll notice there's little checkboxes beside every single request.
That eager.
Or you can, actually, let's go back to the, even just under check manuals or whatever. It doesn't matter, as long as we're in a queue. So there's all these little checkboxes here, and if you were to select any number of those, let's do those first three. There's this button called bulk action, and it's really no different than actioning one request, but whatever you do, you're applying that to all three. So if you're doing a lot, like if you're checking in a large number of things, it can be really, really handy to be able to bulk action, or if you're trying to complete out an entire queue. Say you've got like 2 terminated in your queue and you want to complete them both quick and easy, you can just check on both of those, bulk action complete. And here you'll see, unfortunately, this is literally the list of every single action in VDX, whether it's applicable or not. So you really got to kind of know what action you want.
But you have to hit each box complete, right?
No, just the check boxes.
Oh, this here check. Oh, so sorry. Okay. Okay, so this is sitting on request right now.
Yeah. And
So
so
it is this and this and this.
and so bulk action, and then it will give you a list of options. And that's, like I said, that's literally every single action in VDX, whether it's applicable right now. So yeah, let's just pretend we don't actually want these. We're just going to complete those 3 or whatever.
These are the ones that I did today, so.
Yeah.
Do that. Nice.
And you can do this at pretty much any stage from any queue. You don't even have to do it that particular way. Along the top links, there's a bulk action as well.
Oh, yeah.
And that takes you to this screen here, but it will be blank. Whereas before, by clicking that checkbox, it took that number and populated it into this field. Here we're starting blank. And say you've got like a bunch of papers or something. I use this when I'm checking items in, actually. I'll take all the items I've just got back, and I'll pull out all the paperwork, and I'll stack them all up, and I'll take the request number, and I'll just key it in, next one, and then I can just check them all in at once.
Does it take some time? Because they're so good.
It will.
Oh, no, now they're gone.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the check. Okay, so when the patron returns it, because we checked it into the card record, and then it'll come up here because it's returned here. And I have to check it in here.
You'll have to. These are items that you've already mailed back.
Right.
Yeah, you've marked these ones returned in VDX.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So this is actually the step after what you were talking about. Because the patron has come back, checked it in, and those will actually show up in receipt.
Right. Yeah, but I returned.
These ones are ones that you've already marked returned.
Right.
Yeah. Right. They've already been removed from your ILS and you've marked them returned and sent them on to your ILS.
But okay, then go back to my receipt right now. Okay, so here, there. Okay, so when now it comes back.
Yeah, so these 3 are checked out to your patron right now. Yeah.
So then this is what I usually do when we come back. I just go to return, put the date and return. Yep. Is that correct?
Yep, you bet.
Okay.
Or again, if you knew that you were sending all 3 back, you can do all 3 at once.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Bulk action is really, really, really handy if you're doing a lot of work. And one thing I forgot to mention early on, actually I probably should have mentioned this first thing today, don't use your browser's navigation buttons to try and page back or forward or anything like that. It's always best to try and use the navigational buttons in VDX. So if you want to say, oh, we were just in a list. I want to get back to that list. Don't hit page back. Go back to results. Results will always bring you up, whether you did a patron search, a item search, or a search for existing requests. It will rerun that last search.
So results takes you back
The page back.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing I might show you, it's kind of over, or 2 other things actually. Location. If you click on location, this is just like there's a record for patrons in VDX, there's a record for every library that we have added to VDX. And you can look up that. We'll have their hours of operation, their contacts, and yeah. So let's quickly look. We're looking up AEPNL, which is Northern Lights. And it gives us all kinds of information, like their short name, their long name. Interlibrary loan status is kind of important because it says responder and requester. If you ever see requester only, they're not going to respond to an interlibrary loan you sent them. So, for example, all of your member libraries, if you were to look up your own record, it would say requester only there, because Northern Lights, the headquarters, does your lending. So basically that tells the other libraries out there, never send us a request for something we own. We're never going to respond. And suspended literally just means that they are temporarily suspended in VDX. There is a location record, and normally they will loan, but for whatever reason, like flooding, renovations, holidays, people can put in a suspension. And if that's the case, VDX won't automatically add them into the ROTA. It will say, I see this library, but they're suspended, so I'm skipping it.
If you see something wrong in your,
Change it.
oh, how did you find that? Is this headquarters?
So if you were on the left-hand side and we want to hit location, and then we can go by symbol. I think you can go by short name or long name. So if we wanted L for Lethbridge, AL.
So Jen brought up Lethbridge Public Library, and you can see, that, well, okay, you can't actually see, but I'm going to say that you can see. Interlibrary loan status says requesting only. So if you were to actually send a request, like force a request to Lethbridge Public, they'll get it, but they're not going to respond. But basically that's saying don't expect a reply from them. And then it also kind of has different addresses for billing and that sort of thing.
What's Farmer's Day?
Farmer's Day?
Yeah.
Farmer's Day used to be a holiday in Alberta in June, a Friday in June. Usually the second Friday in June.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, we actually got the day off from school.
That would have been nice.
It's not observed much anymore.
That's pretty cool.
I think UFA still does it. No, really, they do have a barbecue or whatever.
Apparently we're closed on Farmers Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, us too.
Nobody told us.
It's 7.
That's super funny.
We'll have to find that Mitsubishi girls.
So while we're still on this page, one of the other things I wanted to show you about location records is at the very top there's edit home.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Now this literally brings up whatever library you're logged into. You should actually see your own record. You can actually see that you can change the status of requester and responder. And you can edit the addresses, your contacts, and that sort of thing. If, again, anything you're uncomfortable with in VDX, though, send us a report of problem, and we're more than happy to update your location record. In fact, if you do change anything on here, we actually like to know because there's other places that it needs to be updated as well, like the library and archives policy page. We make sure that that's current and stuff.
So that interloan status, we have requesting.
Yeah, because Northern Lights does all of your lending. Yeah. And if you scroll near the bottom of this particular page, about halfway, or no, I guess it is all the way to the bottom.
Yeah, I got rid of 2,000.
Keep in mind, though, this is the test database. Any changes you make aren't going to transfer over to the actual VDX.
Yeah, we're just having.
Okay, yeah, go nuts.
We're going back and requesting Farmers Day.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. The other thing on this particular page I wanted to show you is near the bottom, right above the calculated holidays, there's local holidays. That's actually what we use to suspend libraries if, for whatever reason, staff shortage, renovations. So if we click on that, you can actually suspend your own library. And again, if you do, please let us know. You're more than welcome to do it yourself, but it's just kind of, we like to know that, for example, like Lacombe was recently closed for renovations, and it was nice to know because we would occasionally get calls saying, Lacombe isn't building into the ROTA, what's going on? Like, why is that? And I could quickly, easily say, it's because they're suspended for renovations. I didn't have to do any work or, any kind of research to figure out why they weren't being built into the ROTA, because I already knew, and that was handy. So you can put in for a description literally anything, closed for renovation or closed due to flooding. That was a popular one a couple years ago with High River.
Where is that again? We can't seem to see it.
It's because you were giggling in the back.
I never do that.
So if you scroll near the bottom, just above holidays,
Wait, I did. Oh, I didn't go far.
Yeah. And so you actually even have a couple in there that are unreactive. They're long paths, so they're not going to really do anything. So you could either delete those, or you can, let's just create a new one right now. Yeah, let's just, and so you could literally say, yeah, and the closure type is important because some libraries still want to be able to make requests for their patrons. Even though their ILL staff is away, they still want the requests to go through for their own patrons. So. I love it. And that's all there really is to the patron or the location records. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you're like, oh, I really, I came here for this and we so didn't cover that?
Under reports, is that, do you look at that, or is it managers usually?
No, you're more than welcome to use it. In fact, I use it for all kinds of different things. Sometimes you can pull all kinds of different reports on here. It's not as detailed as some of the things that Jen can pull, because she has access to some pretty intense reporting software. But you can at least see like your monthly ILL stats, or who are the common borrowers, which of your patrons are requesting a lot, and things like that. You can also do search by title. So if a title is coming up a lot in VDX, you can run a report and it will show you that you requested this title 3 times. Maybe you should buy it.
Let's try to see what it does. Oops. Oh, it's a little bit old. Let's try 1 year, 2 years later.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
The word queues can also be modified in what is displayed. So for example, if you really don't want to see any lending stuff, although I really don't recommend it, you can turn it off so that all you see is the borrowing side.
When it says so many searches and so many requests, does that mean these were the titles I looked for, or what does the searches stand for?
But literally how many searches you've done. Like how many times the VDX has done 39 searches.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so 29 searches were done in September.
And the revenue request.
Yeah, exactly, and 8 of those were shipment. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you print out your forms and stuff like that when you receive ILLs, but if you do, let's go to the worksheet first. Do your libraries print out the actual reports? No. You don't print out paperwork or anything like that? You do? Okay.
Yeah, it's the book band, we do that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So any of those, if you click on it and for whatever reason Adobe Acrobat crashes or it doesn't actually display or you close it, you probably have dealt with this. You'd notice it goes to 0 and you can't actually retrieve it from there anymore. You can still get it back from batch reruns. Up along the left-hand column of options there, third from the bottom is batch reruns. We didn't actually do any, so there's none here, but if you had run any of those reports, they're going to show up there until you log out. So it's just kind of a easy way to recover those if you lose them.
Yeah, that's nice to know that you lost them.
Oh, I know, it's super frustrating, and then you're like, well, okay, I guess I'll go and print a ship individually for each request, but this way you can at least still retrieve it as a batch and print them all out. There are lots of features of VDX that we're just honestly not going to cover. We could spend 3 days just talking about VDX and all its funky little features and things like that. Some libraries really, really like the save searches. I personally don't see a use for them. But if we go to advanced, this is, aside from the work queue, this is probably the screen you end up seeing the most. This is the advanced search page when you're searching for active requests. And any of these searches and things like that, you can actually save those. So for example, say you want requests that the last action, let's say will supply, answer will supply, and maybe do, I don't know, article printed or something. I don't know, let's just filter it by format or something like that.
Okay.
And then if you search for that right there, that's literally going to try and find all the article requests that people said, yes, we will supply. Can be handy if you're looking for certain criteria or whatever. And then if you really want to, you could save that. If this is a type of search that you use a lot, I personally don't use them. I don't find a lot of use, although Laura Lee at Parkland swears they're the best feature of VDX and uses them religiously. So I don't. It's just something to be aware of, that you can actually save some of the advanced searches. You can also lock a request too, actually. I'm going to mention that. If you click on the checkbox and click lock, that request has become locked and can only be unlocked by you or whoever is logged in at the moment. So in this case, Alberta. The benefit to that is if you have more than one person working on ILL, it's really handy if you're in the middle of working on it and you got to go off and do something, you can lock it, and the other person working on ILL knows that this one's locked, I'm not going to touch it because they're working on it.
How can you tell that it's locked?
If you go back to results, that's super funny. If it's locked, it will be in red lettering.
Oh,
It's super obvious.
And isn't there a lock beside it too?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Again, like more handy if you've got more than one ILS staff. Otherwise, it's not really that useful. And that is the bulk of VDX in a nutshell.
Ah, here we go.
So that's what they look like when they're
I
locked.
have a question. So let's say an item's lost, a patron loses it. Is there a way, do we just report a problem, or is there a...
You could actually declare an item lost.
Right.
When it's received on your end, there is an action lost, and that informs the lending library that the item has been lost.
Okay.
It isn't showing up on that one.
find the lost.
Yeah, I'm seeing that. Actually, I'm like, it does show up, I swear to God.
You have one
I thought
that's
somewhere
lost.
this morning when I was
And
scrolling.
we still have.
Oh,
to
here's one that has
receive.
lost. That's interesting.
So again, maybe because I bet you know what it was probably the format of these. It probably thinks that it was a copy or something like that, and that it couldn't get lost.
Maybe it's because they're AEU, a lender, maybe it doesn't send it to those lenders. Because this one is
lost
to
then.
Lacombe. And that one doesn't have it. Maybe it has something to do with that.
So then in your work queue, it doesn't show you what you put to lost?
No, I don't believe there's a lost queue.
So what would you do if there's
If there is an item that's lost and you don't have the lost function, then you can just email the library and let them know that your patron has lost the item. And chances are, as soon as you declare it lost, communication is going to move from VDX to email anyway. They're going to start sending you emails and basically trying to sort that out through email.
She might not have it because Barb doesn't have it.
We've got an old one here
It was September of 2014 and it's lost and it's still showing in receipt.
And she doesn't have lost shoes in her menu. Yeah.
There's, on the technical side of VDX, there's kind of two different types of protocols that can be used for ILL communication. There's ISO-ILL and GSM. ISO-ILL is VDX to VDX, and it has a lot more options and fields and things like that. And so if it was a VDX to VDX, I can guarantee you there's going to be a lost function. We're noticing that the U of A don't have lost, and that might be because they actually use a different software, and so we have to use a different set of rules when talking to their library. So
you lose something there.
in that case, I would send public note.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Or again, just email the library, and because as soon as you've declared something lost, they're probably going to move away from their ILL communication and start emailing you to try and get that resolved that way, because it's just going to be faster.
Oh, yeah, it was the University of Alberta.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I think that's probably what it was, is that the particular type of the language we use to talk to them doesn't have loss as an option.
Oh, yeah, the one that showed up. Yeah.
Pardon?
No, I think you're okay to turn it off right when you're done.
Oh, I think so. Well, it's up to you. We can, do you want to show us a few more examples, or do you think?
Do people want to see examples of like things that didn't build Roto or anything like that? Like what we would do to go through to try and find that? Some examples. About as much boredom as you can take, is it? VDX.
Sending a public note for items that have been shipped forever and they never arrive. So that's what it is.
Yeah, again, anytime you want to try and communicate anything to the lending library, send public note is always a good way to start anyway. For example, like you say, if an item's been shipped or marked shipped for quite a while, it's a good idea to send a public note, because they might have marked it shipped and then it got set aside and lost or whatever, shuffled. That happens a lot, actually. It kind of gets kicked around and slips under somebody's desk or whatever. And by sending that message, you just kind of relight that fire. They find it and get the request moving again. And at least that way too, the nice thing about using VDX to communicate is you know it's getting to the people who need to see it. Whereas when you're emailing a library directly, just sort of by guess and by golly whether or not it's actually getting to the right person. So. Yeah, that's it.
Will only be using PDX for another couple of years.
Original end of life was slated for December 2016. Unfortunately, nobody wants to go to WorldCat or to WorldShare ILL because it's missing about three-fourths of the functionality that VDX has. So lots of libraries simply cannot switch to their new product until they get it closer to this level. As such, they've extended the life to 2018. That was this year. Next year, that might change to 2020. Who knows? Because there are an insane amount of stuff that VDX can do that none of the other ILL softwares can do. So.
Yes, well, why would you change?
Well, it is getting very old. The coding that was used for this is getting kind of dated. And so they're kind of having to create more and more workarounds on the coding side to actually keep it still working in the browsers.
We're done the bulk of our presentation, so we can just probably shut the webinar part off. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds ominous.
Yeah.
Maybe just, I don't know, is it just the way I was doing it before? Or just
No more questions?
pause and then stop recording?
All right, well, we'll set you free.
Pardon?
Thank you.